Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the June 6, 2019 Old Bridge Township Council meeting. Oh, I'm sorry, June 10th, excuse me, I'm rushing the time. 2019. Please rise for a pledge of allegiance. Please remain standing for a moment of silence and a prayer. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As customary in this chamber, we stand for a moment of silence to remember those who are protecting our freedoms, both here and abroad, for our first responders, for those who made the ultimate sacrifice, and this evening for some Old Bridge residents. One is Tony Peschetti's brother who passed away, and also this evening I would like to acknowledge, to remember Elisa Akhtar. She was a 19-year-old resident whose young life was cut short by a horrific car accident on May 25th. Elisa was an Old Bridge High School graduate and had just completed her freshman year at MIT and was home for the summer. The Old Bridge Board of Education, her friends and family, had a beautiful memorial for her at the Ellie McDermott Grade 9 Center. Everyone who spoke said she was a strong, loving person. They said she knew what was really valuable in life: family, friends, and I'm told chocolate chip ice cream. On behalf of the Old Bridge Township Council and Mayor, I would like to express our sincere condolences to the Akhtar family. Elisa was a very special person whom Old Bridge will never forget. May I have a moment of silence, please? Our prayer, Mr. Peschetti.
O Lord, bless thy servants in the ministry of public affairs who serve thee in this chamber. Give them quiet minds and hearts that they may hear thy voice. Help them to know when to speak, when to be silent. Give them strength to oppose the wrong and uphold the right. And grant that they have a good conscience and soul at peace with thee and with one another. Amen.
Amen. Please be seated.
This meeting is being held in conformance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Notice has been given to the newspaper, and notice of the meeting has been posted in public places. Next open public meeting of the council will be held on Monday, June 24th, 2019, at 7:30 p.m. Mrs. Brown.
Here.
Mr. Cahill.
Here.
Dr. Greenberg. Here. Mr. Merwin.
Yes.
Mr. Peschetti.
Here.
Mr. Rizzoli.
Here.
Mrs. Walker.
Here.
President Sohar.
Here.
8 present.
Good evening, everyone. This evening, we're going to start with presentations. Mayor Henry. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me here tonight, Council. We're here tonight. I'm pleased to announce that the inaugural 5K Health and Wellness Race on March 30th raised over $12,000. And it was a joint effort by the Mayor's Health and Wellness Council, Give to Those, Inc., all our local businesses, and especially the community of Old Bridge came out in record numbers to support the event. The race was run to honor our hometown heroes, and we had over 550 runners and hundreds of individual contributions. I would like to thank Heather Vivereos, founder of Give to Those, for her effort and her time spent assisting us with the race program and the preparation. This was our first one, so we needed help, and she was there to help us get this race going. Organization and promotion of that race. Heather and her group's motto is, we give to those that served, we give to those who protect, we give to those who we lost, we give to men and women that built this country and keep us protected. Unfortunately, Heather cannot be here with us today. She is out hosting a fundraiser golf outing for her organization in Boston, but sends her regards and thanks us for all our efforts here in Old Bridge. A few weeks ago, I went to the ROTC, the junior ROTC program here in Old Bridge. And if anyone's familiar with that, you've seen them at mostly all the events that occur here in town. And they had volunteered over 5,000 hours back to the community. So we recognized them, and I gave them a check, $1,000. I would ask Karen Tortorici to please step forward for the Municipal Alliance. Thanks for being here. As you know, Karen runs our Municipal Alliance, and they are fighting a war here in Old Bridge, as other towns are fighting a war around the country with an opioid epidemic. And Karen and her organization is doing a great job through education, through learning, helping parents, getting them the information that they need to help, and we can't do this alone. This is something that everyone in the community needs to play an active role in. So we thank Karen, and Karen, because of your and your organization's effort, we'd like to present you with a check for $3,000. Next up, I would ask representatives from VFW Post 6761 to join me. There's no words that can describe our appreciation for the VFW here in Old Bridge and Dominic and on your efforts, known as the Greatest Generation. For our appreciation, Dominic, for you and your men that serve this country, we'd like to issue a check for $2,000. This time, I would ask representatives of VFW Post 9468 to join me.
Come on, Tom.
Come in here.
Fancy meeting you here.
Mr. Bishop, pleasure seeing you. Wayne, I was just thinking about you the other day. I swear to God, how you make out? Your hands are itchy too. Let's hold it up, guys.
Standing, you should have grabbed me. I thought everybody was still standing.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Tonight, next time, I didn't realize you were still standing.
Don't go away. Don't go away. Don't worry about that. Thanks for coming.
That's how I. You got it, Bella.
That's right. I'd also like to recognize two very special individuals that are here. One of them is here tonight with us. I would ask Mr. William Hutchinson to please join me at this microphone. Mr. Hutch has dedicated his life to this country and his community. I'm going to be presenting Mr. Hutchinson with a check for $1,000, who served in our Navy for 8 years, and is a special police officer in this town for 44 years. In addition, he's an active volunteer with the food bank in Perth Amboy and has served as a role model for all of us here in Old Bridge. Mr. Hutch, thank you for your service. Good man.
Haven't seen him in a while. There he wrote the post.
Another individual I'd like to personally recognize is Mr. Robert Erickson. Unfortunately, he could not be with us tonight, but his family is here. I'd like to ask him to please join me. Mr. Erickson, as you know, was our parade grand marshal a few years back, and the proclamation prepared for him was probably one of the most amazing proclamations that I ever had to read, with what Mr. Erickson went through in the Korean War. Mr. Erickson was an Army veteran, and he served as a medic during the Korean War, and some of the battles listed were perhaps one of the most fierce battles that the Army has ever been involved in. He has been a longtime member of Old Bridge, has lived in Lawrence Harbor, and he has been with the Lawrence Harbor Fire Department for 65 years. Amazing individual. Tonight, accepting our donation is his wife, Ann, of 63 years. Beautiful. And we have Robert here, who I went to high school with, was a long-time athletic director here in Old Bridge, had a positive impact on many, many children. Mr. Erickson did well with his two sons. And also joining me today is Jimmy Erickson, who is still one of our finest and keeps our streets safe. So, Mr. Erickson, please give him our best for a speedy recovery and let him know we appreciate what he's done for the country and our community. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us here, guys. Thanks for coming out. Thank you.
Congratulations to everyone. Very, very well deserved. Thank you all for coming, and thank you for all the hard work. It's so appreciated. Next, we will be doing a liquor license approval. Stella?
Yes, thank you. Okay. It's renewing liquor license 1209-33-30-003. R. Flynn Enterprises Incorporated, trading as Keg and Cork Pub, which all of you know has been a pocket license. I need two approvals separately. The first one is for their licensing year from last year, July 1st, 2018, to June 30th, 2019. We were waiting for some paperwork from the state. That's why this is late in being put on here. So if I could have a motion for that,
Move it.
President? Second. Okay.
They're here. Stella?
Yes, the daughter is here, yes. Okay. All right, Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
Dr. Greenberg? Yes. Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Pescetti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Sohar?
Yes.
9 yes. And the second one is same license, also a pocket license, and it's for the licensing year of July 1st, 2019 through to June 30th, 2020.
Do we have a motion? Second.
Right, Mrs. Walker seconded.
Walker? Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
Dr. Greenberg? Yes. Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Pescetti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
9 yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a good evening. Next will be our bill listing. Mrs. Walker.
Accounts payable, June 10, 2019, $19,995,033.04.
Do I have a motion? Second. Moved by Dr. Greenberg, second by Mr. Rizzoli.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
Dr. Greenberg? Yes. Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Pescetti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
9 yes.
Payroll, May 24, 2019, $959,407.71.
Do I have a motion?
Move it.
Moved by Dr. Greenberg Belli, second by Mr. Rizzoli.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
And Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Pescetti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
9 yes.
Payroll overtime, May 24, 2019, $28,074.50.
Do I have a motion?
Move it.
Moved by Mrs. Walker, second by Mr. Rizzoli. Mr. Shaw, may we have a breakout, please?
Thank you, Council President. As Councilwoman Walker indicated, the total overtime was $28,074.50. There was no special anomaly in other department. For the police department, the total overtime was $15,963.89. There was no grant deductions. When you deduct for ETO, $5,614.33. The net overtime was $10,349.56, representing 245.25 men and women hours. There was no special event or no officer injured on duty in that period.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shaw.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
And Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Pescetti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
9 yes.
Payroll, June 7, 2019, $952,974.99.
Do I have a motion?
Second.
Moved by Mr. Rizzoli, second by Mrs. Walker.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
And Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Pescetti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
9 yes.
Payroll overtime, June 7, 2019, $36,140.14.
Do I have a motion?
Second.
Moved by Dr. Greenberg Belli, second by Mrs. Walker. Mr. Shaw, may we have a breakout, please?
Yes, thank you again, Council President. As Councilwoman Walker indicated, the total overtime for the pay period was $36,140.14. Again, there was no anomalies in other departments to report. For the sworn officers overtime, total overtime for that pay period was $26,453.36. There was no grant deductions. Deduction for ETO was $3,488.59. There was total overtime was $22,964.77, representing 428 men and women hours. During that period, we had parade. There was 2 fatality in the town. There was murder reported, and so there was an extra activity required. There was no officer injured on duty that period.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
And Dr. Greenberg? Yes. Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Pescetti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
9 yes.
That concludes the bill list.
Thank you, Mrs. Walker. Okay, this evening, there is no public hearing and ordinances for second reading, so we will go to preliminary public comments to council, subject to the following conditions and restrictions. During the preliminary public portion of the meeting, any person may address the Township Council on any subject matters for a maximum of 5 minutes. Any such person desiring to speak during the preliminary public portion shall first sign a list maintained by the Township Clerk for that such purpose. Comments during the preliminary public comment portion of the meeting shall not encompass second reading ordinances or any other matter for which comment or a public hearing is to occur at the meeting.
Andrea Janucci?
Good evening. Whatever, if you prefer to sit, that's fine. Yes, yes, ma'am. How are you?
I'm back because 2 months after the meeting.
Is your mic
Is that
on?
on?
Sorry. I was here 2 months ago with the property next to me having whole standing water. I brought pictures today, still whole, still standing water. After the meeting that was here, they came for 2 days to work, and they haven't been back. So it's standing water, mosquitoes. I have a couple to pass around so you guys could see pictures. I know there was, who do I give it to? So they could see.
Thank you.
I know there was an insurance claim committed, made, and it was denied, because it was the wrong date. They put it November 2018, and it started a year and a half prior to that, so that's insurance fraud. So I'd like to know, what is the town gonna do? Because, I'm being told I have to hire an attorney, which I did check into, and it's $500 an hour for a hole I didn't dig. And how can we still have standing water 2.5 years later? I mean, I can't sell my house. Honestly, I don't even want to be here anymore.
Can you pass it down to Anita?
Council President, if I may, I spoke to construction officials, and there is a court date on June 25th scheduled. Building Department met with the new contractor this morning to discuss putting foundation permit release for the revised plan. And we hope that will resolve. Unfortunately, it's a private property, and we have a limited control. We can go through the issuing the fines and issuing summons, but we can't enter the property to, take an action until we have some kind of a court approval process. So, but the summons is being issued. There's a court date. The next court date is for the property owner to appear is June 25th.
And that's all great, that the summons, but I was told every week there was no work done. Matter of fact, the property owner sent me the citation, and it's supposed to be a $2,200 fine a week. And for 8 weeks, there's no work being done. And if they were giving summons, I would think that somebody, the homeowner or somebody would care enough to start doing something. And I know you met with him because I came down, they're making a prefab wall that takes 3 weeks. Well, 8 weeks later, they just came to meet with you to get new permits. So this is just gonna buy more time, and I just don't want the standing water there. So I don't care if the property's empty, I don't want water. I don't want a hole with water. It's damaging my property, I can't even sell my home.
Excuse me, can the water be pumped out in the meantime? Is there a place that pump?
I've given them my electric 5 times free to do it. But yes, one time, right before, the next day after the meeting, they did come with generators and pump it, and then they never came back. I've had to call mosquito control. But yeah, they can pump it every time it rains, and that would make me happy.
So basically, My concern is that I don't know how deep this hole is, but you have a hole with water. If you have a pool, you have to have a fence around it.
Yeah, and there's no, right, and it's like a pool, it's the size of a pool. But now it's only 4 feet deep instead of 12,
Okay.
because they
so-
put gravel. But the problem is there's still water underneath the gravel because we live by the water. So now it's 4 feet deep and it's green, smelly,
So they came, and from what I'm understanding, they came a few days.
after the
And
meeting.
were, after the meeting and worked,
2
and
months
then
ago.
you didn't.
Oh,
So
going again.
basically, when they stopped coming, was it, like, when they came, obviously, we thought possibly they were gonna continue to
so
come.
happy.
Yes, obviously, we would all be.
Yeah.
So when they didn't come, did you
I came down
notify-
to the town, and I spoke to them, and I know that they hired an attorney. I've gotten a threatened letter, which I did attach. It doesn't, unfortunately, and I get that it's a private property, but I have strangers from their end building, walking on my private property. So it's not really private when there's no fencing and there's water. I mean, fill the hole.
Could I ask you a question? Since it is a danger, somebody could fall in, and I know it's private property, but is there something code could do, like for imminent danger?
To make sure they put a fence around it.
There's an orange fence that falls down with the windstorm.
I mean, I would think that we could intercede, because it seems like it's a dangerous situation.
And a
The
health
the
hazard.
property is under, they have a permit, they're under active construction, so they have those action taken according to the requirement. And what we can do is issue summons, bring him to the court, and compel, but we can't enter the property.
See, if
That's
I
all.
could, this.
the hole.
Hold on for a second. This property, we, initially, when it was 12 foot, I remember we spoke, the property owner, I think was down in Florida, or they couldn't get in contact with her, if I remember.
Yeah.
We worked through the architect, that's when they filled it from the 12
Yeah,
feet.
she's local,
Right,
yeah.
when they filled it from the 12 feet to the 4 feet.
Yes, they're
right.
getting rid of the basement because
Right.
she's selling.
Right, exactly. And then that was when they addressed that, because I spoke to the architect, and he was working on getting that done. They were supposed to put up a safety fence,
Yes.
because it is an active construction site. But that would not negate their obligation to ensure its continued safety. So from our perspective, is that our inspectors need to continue, just like we did last time, the one there was water, and require them to get the water out, require them to keep the safety fences up, and then, again, if they don't do that, but I think our zoning officer has that authority now, construction official has that authority now, and to the extent that the violations continue, then it's a continued violation. So I think from our perspective, we have to make sure our inspectors are out there watching the property and then enforcing the property. And then, I don't know if there's with respect to the withdrawal of the water, depending on where it is and the storm system, you can force them to do that, make sure they don't leave mud on the street. Those are all things that zoning and construction official should be on top of to enforce to do.
Yeah, last time they did come out, I was told by the gentleman that works for the township, ma'am, your grandson's not gonna fall in the hole. Like, that I should watch him. Well, of course I watch him and I don't let him outside. But if I'm putting him in the car and he runs, he's 22 months old. I
Well,
am
if
not
somebody
be
engaged in that
disrespected.
type, I would
Well,
like to
what?
know,
I came
discuss
down.
with him, and that's unacceptable, and I apologize on behalf of the employee if they said something like that to you, but I will certainly tomorrow discuss that matter, that employees are not to engage in any of that type of discussion. The limitations that we have, and we have a number of properties like this in town that we're dealing with it, with the court date, the court gave extensions, that makes it difficult for us, because you certainly don't want any government to enter in a private property without proper authorization or the court approval. That's what we're dealing with here. But I can tell you that they did meet today, and they have another contractor. That's been another difficulty with this
It's not
property owner.
the- it's
They
not
keep
the,
changing the contractor or
Green
something.
Point?
I don't know the full detail, but it says that met with a new contractor again, so.
Right, third one now. And she has no money to pay them. I just want the whole field. I mean,
You have a right excuse me, you have a right to be safe, and it's your house, and it's a negative effect. And that's the most important thing, that I want to know that you're safe and the area's safe. We're fortunate, right now, there has not been a tragedy. We do not want a tragedy. Usually with the builder, they do have to make it safe, the environment safe for you to be on there. So I know the administration will be on the code department tomorrow.
Okay.
I know the history of the property, that, you're right, there's been multiple builders, and the reason why there's no money, I know she's in litigation with the first builder. But whatever it is,
Right, it's not
that's
my
not our
problem.
business right
Not yours.
now. And I feel bad when that happens, because, the individual obviously
course.
wanted to build a house, so it's a bad situation. She's been between the rock and a hard place, but we cannot let a safe,
Yeah, I just don't
unsafe
want
area
water,
exist.
standing
Yes.
water, hole
Yeah.
that my driveway falls into.
Oh, it's eroding away your property.
That's all,
Yeah.
6 feet of it.
Yeah.
That's all I'm asking for, is drain the water, because then mine won't collapse as quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And I was also told by one of the contractors that within a couple months, I'll lose my garage, and my mother lives upstairs,
Well,
a
we don't
legal
want that.
apartment. It's all cracking. So I would just like, when I come here, for some reason, something gets done for a day or two. So I'm hoping maybe in the next 2 days, something will get done.
Well, maybe they didn't know that things weren't still getting done.
No, they
or-
know.
But basically, just follow up.
Yeah.
It'll be taken care of, and
Yeah.
I'm so sorry you're going
Thank
through
you.
that.
Okay, Mr. Rizzoli
Thank you.
also, and then Mr. Murphy, I'll let everyone.
I might give you a recommendation, Mr. Rizzoli, can stop me if I'm wrong. Go to this court window right here.
Okay.
2C33-12, maintaining a nuisance. It's 12A, actually. A person is guilty of maintaining a nuisance when, by conduct either unlawful in itself or unreasonable under all the circumstances, he knowingly or recklessly creates or maintains a condition which endangers the safety or health of a considered number of persons. Okay?
2C33?
2C33-12A.
Thank you.
You can go right to this window, sign a complaint, and drag them into this courtroom, and you'll be amazed how that changes people's views
Perfect.
on things.
And you said there'll be a hearing June 25th?
Summons, the hearing on our summons that was issued is
Will
on
be
June
here?
20th. Yeah, it's in this, will be here. And please call me, call my office if you don't see a contractor either in a day or two, and I'll have a construction official follow up again.
Okay.
Thank you for coming and sharing.
Thank you very much.
No, I think John had a comment, and then,
Mr. Rizzelli,
Yes, sir.
if there was to be a lawsuit and something happened to somebody. If there was to be a lawsuit or anything, I mean, wouldn't we also be brought into it?
Well, I'm not going to comment on potential lawsuits involving the township. There's a lot of issues involving that, but to the extent that the township has taken steps to try to rectify the situation, they've been notified, and we are taking those steps, and we'll continue to take those steps.
I understand that, but wouldn't it behoove us to, whatever it is, to
Again, right, so again.
take, before there's a safety first?
Right, and
And
that,
put up the fence ourselves, because that fence they're putting up, that, Debbie, I agree with on that, that's a wind thing, and it's not even going to hold back the wind.
no, again, so you have, the construction code requires certain requirements, and the safety fencing that was installed, that was per code. So when this was first brought to my attention initially, the understanding was that it was going to be addressed, and again, that's when it was filled in from 12 feet. And we'll continue to monitor it and enforce it. And the town's going to take all steps it can through zoning and construction to make sure the site is safe.
Because issuing these warnings does nothing, or these, whatever
but
else.
there's due process, so to the extent that anybody has due process rights, so you have to give them notice, and then you follow the process. That's just the way it's set up in every aspect of municipal government, whether it's municipal law, construction. It's not a situation necessarily where you can just go in and do it. Everyone's entitled to due process, and it's part of due process.
Okay, I thought we already went through that. This is
We
just the
did.
beginning?
That she's already been issued the violation. I have a copy of it because she texted to me, and that was months ago. And every week, if work isn't being done, she's supposed to be fined $2,200 a month, a week. I have she sent it to me. Yet she hasn't, maybe she just received one. That's great, but I just know if you make somebody pay and come and be accountable, they're going to get it done a little quicker. Nobody would want to live next to this.
Right.
And I don't want to have to come here just to get work done for 2 days.
Madam Chairperson,
Yes.
Go ahead.
knowing a little bit about code enforcement, they do the very minimum. They put the orange fence up, which that's what they're legally required to do. They're not required to put anything up more than that temporary fencing. Summonses have been issued. We now need to let the court run its course. But what we do need to is make sure that it gets pumped out. And either that or contact the Middlesex County Mosquito Control.
They've been
and
coming
they'll
every
fine
2
'em.
weeks.
You know, there should be pumped out. And if it rains daily, they should pump it out daily.
That's all I want, because I do have a small child that lives with me. That's truly all I want. I do not want to live next to standing water. I just don't want to. I don't care if it'll take another year. I get life happens, but I do not want to live next to standing water. It's not safe. Thank you so
Well,
much for
thank
hearing
you
me
very much
again.
for coming and making us aware of the situation, because sometimes not all of us, and this way, if we know what's going on, it helps us get a better picture.
Perfect. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you. You have a good evening.
Madam President,
Yes.
was there handouts? Did she want us to each have something?
Not all of us, we were passing it down. You didn't receive pictures?
I didn't see it.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you.
passed it.
Here it is.
Yeah, we'll make sure he sees them as well. Yeah. Yeah, I thought. Stella?
I have another rib.
Okay.
Sit on public portion.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll now go on to council member comments on my left. Anyone, Mr. Murphy?
Yes. I guess this is for Mr. Shah. I guess pretty much since I've been a councilman, I've got invited to different things like meetings here and other things like that. And it's by employees. I thought the proper protocol, unless something's changed, is everything should go through the clerk on that. Is that true? I mean, I shouldn't be getting letters from township employees, should I?
Well, I mean, if you're referring to your email, that HR invited council member, the HR director invited council member to attend to meet a potential
Thank you.
employee,
Thanks.
I think that's a proper protocol. I don't think there's any protocol violations.
I think it's in your book that says everything in that case goes through the clerk.
Yeah, clerks is aware of it. This is all had been done through the council president's involvement with her agreement. So there's nothing that I think is outside of protocol.
Well, I think the person coming to a council person should be the clerk. She is, she runs that part. I mean, that's what it is, unless it's changed over the last few years. I'll check it out.
Do you want the entire personnel management to have clerk's office for clerk's office to manage?
I don't,
Let's not go
I'm
there.
just saying that's what it says.
Let's not go there.
I don't know. I think we have used proper protocol. We have council presidents involved. We have township clerks involved in the process. I'm not sure what protocol concern is that when we send the HR or us sends a lot of invitation. We send invitation when we have a grand openings that is being sent by the economic development. So there is many information being sent out.
That's different.
I think this is, I'm not sure what this debate is about.
No, it's not a
and issues
debate.
about.
I'm just saying I shouldn't have employees should not be contacting the council members.
Well, it's, I guess, under the rules, and I think council, the attorney can say, council should not be engaging with any employees either. But we have a council, if this is the process that council wants, I'm okay with that.
Well, who says the council wants that?
Referring to that, and now if you want to go to the entire protocol, proper process under the rules and regulation, then it should be both, everybody should be following that. I think
Who's
we
contacting?
have-
Nobody
I-
from the
I had a
council should be
conversation-
doing it either.
I had conversation with the other council members. For the efficiency purpose, the council contacts the departments, and they generally copies the administrations or mayor And so we allow those communication, just like in this case, the HR who manages the hiring practices contacted the council in setting up the meeting schedule. And if township clerk has a problem, I'm more than happy to hear that.
I'm just saying, why is it written that way if we're not going to follow it that way? There's a protocol.
I have no idea. I think I gave you information.
This is what I think, that's why I'll try to interpret. Under the Faulkner Act, any and all communications by and between council and the administrative employees, the statute says it's through the business administrator. That's what the statute says. It's been the policy of this administration to alleviate that requirement because they thought it would be more expedient if a council member has a question with respect to the department head, that they be able to communicate directly with that department head. So to the extent that the statute requires that, it would go both ways. If council does not want to have those communications directly, which was my advice, by the way, not to have those communications, because things could happen. But that's, the administration chose to have that so that council could have that interaction. Then it would go both ways. Council wouldn't be able to contact any township administrative employee, and administrative employees wouldn't contact any council member. It would just go except through the business administrator who would do the communicating. That's what the Faulkner Act states, and to the extent that council wants that followed, we certainly are more than willing to follow that. I think the reason why it wasn't was for expediency and to allow more access by council to the administrative staff.
Madam President?
Yes, Mr. Pescitti.
Thank you. I just want to go on record to say that the way it's been going these last 2 years has been excellent. I'm able to communicate to Public Works. They communicate to me directly. I don't have any issue. I copy Himanshu on everything, all the back and forth, and it's been working very well. I think it's streamlined, and I'm enjoying that streamlining. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else for a comment? No? All right, I just want to make it clear, though, that Mrs. Ward was not circumvented in any way, or that was not the spirit in which this was done. We conducted interviews, there was, everything was done with the clerk's office, and I really don't think this was done in any way for any other reason than to just have the council members go with the HR person who had scheduled these interviews. Yes, Mrs. Brown?
Yeah, I agree with Councilman Pescitti. I too find that it really streamlines communication just to speak directly to the township employee. And like Mr. Shaw said, copy him on any correspondence. So I would like to continue to do so. Perhaps we can talk offline, Councilman Murphy, if you don't like that.
I didn't know, it did not, the clerk wasn't copied on that. She could have at least copied her. I mean, it was like, I didn't want to call her and say, well, you copied on this.
Did township clerk had I haven't heard from any other council member but you. Did the township clerk indicate anything to you to bring it to the attention of the council?
No,
I think, Stella, you can speak for yourself, right? No. Okay.
No.
I can speak to the council.
But I do know Mr. Murphy was upset that I wasn't CC'd.
All right.
Anyone else for a comment? Anyone else for a comment? No, thank you. Okay, Mrs. Walker, did you have something to say? Oh, Mrs. Walker.
I just want to talk about two events I had the pleasure of going to this week. On Sunday, I went to SEPTA, had a family fun day at Lombardi Field. It was very well attended, and it was a really very, very nice event. And all the kids seemed like they were having a great time. We stayed there about 2 hours. And also, I attended our grand opening of our pickleball course here at the Municipal Center on June 5th. It was a very big event. I would say about 100 people attended. And the pickleball is becoming, gigantic in the state. And like I said, it's good for elderly people. It gives them an ability to be active. So if you haven't had a chance, go out and try to play pickleball. We're going to try to post some times on the website when there'll be other people there that you could play together.
Dr. Greenberg?
Yes, I'd just like to say that one day I was listening to Channel 12 News, and it was really refreshing to hear Old Bridge mentioned in a positive light, but not once, but twice. And one was for the Tada performance. If anyone knows what that is, Tada is a theater adapted for different abilities, and it originated and was founded by Debbie Concavs. And what she did, she realizes that one time at one of the schools, I think it was Southwood, they had a talent show. And the children with special needs, she did a skit for them, and they enjoyed it so much. So she applied for a grant, and now she puts on a performance. And I watched it on the news, and I saw the children and their adults also that were in it with special needs. And they are special people because we don't even see them once. We see them here when they're getting awards for swimming, for hockey, for track, the Special Olympics, and now performing. So these individuals, they may have special needs, but they're multi-talented, and I'm very impressed with the things that they do. And I just want to compliment her for giving of her time and her dedication to do that. And then also on Channel 12, the principal from Memorial School, Ray Patton, he was recognized because they had a program there trying to get the kids out in the summer. A lot of times, I knew when I was growing up, you were out from sunlight till they went home for dinner and had to be back in when those street lights out. And sometimes you don't see kids out playing that much anymore. And the department took initiative to have a helmet program to give helmets to kids, so they have them to get on bicycles and scooters to get out and spend time and enjoy yourself outside. And it was wonderful. And that's why when people say, there's not a lot of good things in Old Bridge, there are so many things going on at different times. And I also want to compliment the rec department and Silver Linings. I went to the intergenerational art show. I was so impressed with the talent there, and going around at all the tables, and from spectrum, from young students to seniors, the artwork they did, I was in awe. I was really impressed, and I really think it's nice to take the time and go see what's going on in our town. It's a very active community, and I'm very proud of it. And I just want to thank all those individuals that give of their time, themselves, to make these programs happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, Madam Chairperson.
Yes, Mr. Merwin.
Yes. For the administration, maybe they know the answer. The cat colonies for the trap, neuter, and release. I had the occasion to be notified by a couple of residents in reference to a colony that is at 223 Hillcrest Avenue. Now, if they hadn't contacted me, I would have known it the next day because I happened to be in that area, going door to door, and 3 doors away, I could smell it. It's a colony of, they have several houses of cats, and they sent some pictures, and so you have the urination and the droppings, and they're leaving the food out, so now you have all the other critters coming, the raccoons and the squirrels and all kinds of vermin. And I think our trap, neuter, and release ordinance doesn't address locations of it. This is definitely not a location where we should be having cat colonies. between two houses where there's 8 foot between the two houses, and the one neighbor is having a cat colony, and everybody else in the neighborhood is suffering. Matter of fact, they sent along a letter from their pediatrician where their 2 kids are suffering because of it. And it may be something that we should look into. The trap neuter and release is here, and we have it, but maybe we should be looking into where these things are.
Councilman, this may not be an approved TNR program approved, because there is an approval process now. This may be somebody's feeding cats without,
Well, the neighbors had checked with the PD, and they advised them that they were issued a permit.
Okay, so
So I
that's
mean, but
something,
I don't think our ordinance addresses locations or anything. I think it's just
They
a
do
blanket
address-
ordinance and
they do address, there are restrictions where area or school related restrictions, but, that doesn't mean that people are not gonna have, even if without TNR, there are people will have a lot of cats in the house or around, stray cats, feral cats, they feed them, they put the food out, and now that you have alerted me, we'll follow up with the police department and animal control to see what really is going on and what's approved process and how they're handling it.
all right.
Okay.
Can I just
Yeah.
interject about that property? Yes, I got a call from the resident that was complaining about it, and we did send the ACO officer out there. And the problem is a lot of times with educating people. I did get a follow-up call from the individual, and he has had a discussion to talk to the neighbor, and they've actually worked it out in a very amicable way, and they're working on the problem. So the problem is, trap, neuter, vaccinate, release is a good program if it's followed properly, and wherever it is, the most important thing, you have to be a good neighbor. And you have to realize we live in neighbors, we live in communities, and you have to be respectful when you do it to your neighbor. And the problem is, a lot of times, these are no one's cats, they just show up. But if you don't do it in a proper way, it really does create problems. So I'm happy to say that I did speak to the individual yesterday, and there was a meeting amongst the neighbors and to the individual that was feeding the cats, and they put in several parameters, and actually, it's very nice, as a group, they're gonna all work together. So it's not one neighbor against any other neighbor now, and that came through with a lot of conversation and really educating them all and, defining the problem, and now I'm happy to report they did work it out, so I'm gonna keep on following up with it, and hopefully it goes in a positive fashion. Thank you.
Just one question.
Hold on now, hold on.
If it hadn't,
Councilwoman Brown was going to say something. I just actually.
I just recognized
Yeah, she
Councilwoman
did.
Brown, please.
So this is actually in response to what you said, Councilman Merwin. I kind of went over this a little bit during my lovely town hall last week. By the way, thank you for coming. One of the things that I was talking to Officer Grumpert about is actually amending the ordinance or doing some updates to it. I'd like to know if we could actually get that meeting going. I know we're supposed to meet with Anita. We were hoping for that, for a meeting with Councilwoman Greenberg, and maybe we could kind of see if, Councilman Merwin, if you want to join in, maybe we can find a way to update the ordinance, because right now I believe the only restriction is there cannot be a setup, I believe it's like 1,000 feet from a school, right? But, so it was actually suggested by Officer Grumpert, and he's the one who suggested changing it. I didn't, but he actually suggested it because he felt like at current, it really doesn't help to, alleviate the problem of people who are not, within 1,000 feet from the school. So he suggested that we actually look into updating the ordinance and making it more restrictive. So if we can do that, that would be good. Yeah.
We'll talk to him. He had a death in the family, so
Yeah, right.
we'll ask him about it. And also, Councilwoman Greenberg is on the committee that authorized the cat colony, so we'll discuss, the committee will be meeting and discussing, and then we'll come, hopefully a recommendation if changes are needed.
Mayor,
Yes.
my only question is if they hadn't come to a consensus on Hillcrest, what avenue of address does the township have, since it's not addressed in the ordinance? What could ACO have done? What could have,
To the best of my knowledge, if it's a nuisance, even under the ordinance, I think it's specified, even if the colony becomes a nuisance, the township could step in and take appropriate action.
Yeah.
So if it's a nuisance, and we were advised of the area, the location, it's not something new, we're just hearing tonight. We're trying to work, as Dr. Greenberg had said, with the people in the area to try to alleviate the nuisance. As you said, no one wants the smell. It's just not fair to everyone.
All right. Everyone that hasn't made a comment, anyone else need to make a comment? All right, Mr. Murphy, and then I'm going to
Okay,
close this.
Mrs. Greenberg, how many of these do you have right now throughout the town?
I do not manage these colonies.
No, my question is,
That you have to find out from the ACO. The director at the animal shelter oversees it. You have to fill out a form. You have to identify how many cats are in the colony. You have to make sure they're spayed and vaccinated. But there are parameters already in the ordinance, basically where they can be and with your neighbors. There are restrictions.
and we still have,
The ACO officer did go out, the director's aware of it, and, they're working on it. And they sent the trap, neuter, vaccinate, release members that are administrating the problem out there. And so we'll see how they report back to me. I told them to keep me updated all the time.
okay, well, my question is, we still have to have them neutered and all that, right?
Yes, the problem is that a lot of times what happens, and I've said this multiple times, the real problem starts when people are abandoning animals.
I understand that.
That's the problem. And that's when you want to start causing, that's where really fines should be implicated. But how do you get someone who drives by at night and drops off cats? That's the problem.
That's disgusting.
You
But
know?
What I wanted to say is, somebody had called me in a house the other day, and I kind of thought it was this way. She says, let me just show you the show. It's when you and one of the other councilmen are arguing. You said, look, it's not going to cost any money. You might have to buy food. She goes, where does it say you have to hire a vet? I said, it doesn't. But what I want to do is I want to try to contact these people, and maybe if I can get enough of them together throughout the town, we can come up with some kind of things where we could pitch in and do it among ourselves. Because ever since this came out, the people would take it upon themselves. I think the one lady did 3 of them. One of the ladies next door to me that passed away did 2 of them. They don't want to spend their money. So I came up with 2 reasons, two things. We can either go to a bunch of different vets and see if we can get a better price, because some are like 100, some are like 70, but they're further away, and they don't have this kind of money to have these cats neutered. So now all these people are feeding the cats, and we have more than ever.
The problem is, we've gone over this a million times. There is a formula. This is put out by Sustainable New Jersey. Based on your population, you could figure out a percentage. There's probably over 6,000 stray cats in this town. What happens is this: the trap, neuter, release program only works when you go in and you spay and neuter these animals. By attrition, the animals go down. The problem is there are people feeding cats and do not take the time when there's 1 cat, 2 cat, to reach out to the administrators. They wait till there's 10 or 20 cats. I could tell you in different homeowners associations, they've done over 300 cats this year. But it all becomes when you have 1 cat and you don't do anything till there's 10 cats, and those 10 cats are propagating again. So the problem is, it's a never-ending thing. Even the people that have them are frustrating. But it all starts, these cats came from somewhere. Someone abandoned the cats. They're really feral cats. No one neighborhood's cats. But if you don't start somewhere, there's a problem. But whoever does it has to be a good neighbor, and that's the problem. There's a balance with this. And there's no place to bring these cats.
Well,
Where are you gonna bring them?
I'd like to find a place where we could all get together, find a place, maybe bring 10 of them at a time and stuff like that throughout the
They do
town.
30s at a time. The one day, Debbie and I
afford that.
went, they did 60 cats at a day.
Yeah,
So.
but we can't afford that many.
No, the bottom line is, there are places for low-cost spay and neuter, and there's grants that can be done, and there's fundraising to be done. And the problem is, it's not the township, they're not the town's cats. They're no one's cats. And sadly, there's a whole layer of things that people don't realize between hoarders, that there's cats. It's a very serious problem, and I really think that, at the Trap, Neuter, Vaccinate, Release Committee, they've gone over it. That's why you started an ordinance. And it's not just an ordinance that's unique to this town. There are ordinances going on throughout the whole state all the time. And the problem is irresponsible people that started the problem. But
I agree.
really, I want everyone to be happy. Everyone, whether they like cats or don't like cats, we all have to live together, but also you have to think of a public health and also for the health of the cat. But this program will work, and we are going to plan on put on television. We do need volunteers. So that's the way that we're going to go now. We need more volunteers, and we'll talk about it,
But these
okay?
volunteers have to pay. That's their problem. I didn't even know they had to vaccinate them. That's going to be more money.
What
They
I'm
think it's
saying-
their cats out there. They've named everyone. They know which one's the brother of this one. They've watched them. It's crazy over there.
The people that sign up to administer a colony, yes, they do fundraising. to take
I
care
didn't
of the
realize there were things like that you could do. Well, could I be on that meeting with you guys, so maybe I can get some suggestions?
have a quorum, and I don't run the meeting. I'm just a member.
Well, I'll talk to Adina. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we good now? All right, I'm just going to close the council comments just with a few things. I did have the pleasure of attending the Hooked on Fishing, Not Drugs program that they have each year at Cheesequake State Park, where they bring the children and they fish. It was an absolutely beautiful day in the park, and there was quite a few people there. There was over 50 people, and Karen Tortorisi, who was here just earlier in the evening, is the person who runs that. She does the Municipal Alliance, and I have to tell you that that was an excellent program. It really was a pleasure to see all the kids having such a great time fishing. There was so much going on. We received a grant for the cultural arts for Middlesex County Art and History. It's going to, it was for $3,500, and they're going to look to start a choral band here in town. This is another thing that I think is really important, that cultural arts is something that can affect all of us here in town. So that was another positive. We do have some issues that were brought to me this month, and among them were some of the streets in my ward that are having difficulty. One is Partridge Road, the other is Spring Valley Road, and I've gotten several calls, and there is problems there on those roads, but there's a methodology as to what we're going to do, and I'd like our Public Works Director to please just speak to that issue. Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you, Councilwoman Sauer. On Partridge Road, we have identified 4 locations that we're going to schedule for milling and paving. It is going to require the road to be shut down during the day from approximately 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., so we're going to start that work as soon as schools are out, so we're not affecting transportation for the schools. Spring Valley, we've been back out filling potholes there, and engineering has that scheduled to be paved later in the summer. So.
Okay. So we definitely have a plan. I just want everyone who travels those roads to know that it has not fallen on deaf ears. There is a plan, and there is a reason why for the timing of it all. The last thing I will talk about is the signs have gone up. They're called target zone areas. We had discussed this at prior meetings. Chief Volkert had come up with this idea that perhaps by placing these signs saying on these particular roads that it would be a mandatory court appearance should you be charged with a violation. So it's another tool to try once again to slow down people because the speeding in town is rampant. We all know that. And unfortunately, there's just so much that can be done. So each time we just try, to come up with more and more things that will deter speeding. So you will see them on certain roads. It is a pilot project. We're going to see how it works in these certain areas, and then we can expand upon it if we find it to be something that's worthy of doing that. So that's another thing. Just be aware of those signs because they are going to have enforcement behind them. Thank you very much. Report of the Township Clerk.
Just a quick report. I just want to thank everybody that helped me with the elections. Just to name a few, the Police Department, including the OIC that night, Public Works Department, they were there through the whole thing, Recreation the same, the court, the Finance Department, and all the work that the help that some of the girls gave me in there and worked for that night. I thank them all, and most of all for my office, because they put in a lot of long and tedious hours throughout the election before and after. So thanks to everybody, and congratulations to the winners. And just a reminder that all the political signs that are up there now, they must be removed 14 days after the election, which would be June 18th. And that's my report.
Okay, do I have a motion to accept our clerk's report, please? Okay, moved by Dr. Greenberg Belli, second by Mr. Rizzoli.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
And Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy? Mr. Biscotti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Sohar?
Yes.
8 yes.
Report of the Township Attorney.
Nothing new to report, Madam President.
Administrative report, Mr. Shaw.
Thank you, Council Presidents. The administrative report for June 10th. Item number 1, Art of Ages. On Friday, May 31st, 2019, the Department of Parks and Recreation and Social Services and the Silver Lining Center at Old Bridge held its first ever intergenerational art show called Art of Ages. Over 200 pieces of art created by the students of Parks and Recreation's art and craft programs and by the members of Silver Lining were on display for all to enjoy. It was a great event that illustrated the talent and creativity of our residents as young as 4 years old and as old as 100 years old. We look forward to hosting this event again next year. For information on our programs, please visit oldbridge.com/recreation. Item number 2, Mayor Henry's Clean Team. On Saturday, June 1, 2019, Mayor Henry and volunteer from Old Bridge Education Foundation's Hands Up Changes, Old Bridge Soccer League, U13 Warriors, and the Carl Sandburg Chronicle cleaned up the Perrine Road, Sunset Avenue, Cheesequake Road, and Kearney Avenue. Organizations interested in participating in the Mayor's Clean Team should email recycling@oldbridge.com. Item number 3, Hooked on Fishing, Not on Drugs. On June 8, 2019, the Municipal Alliance hosted a free fishing lesson at Cheesequake Park between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m. for 30 fourth grade students from Old Bridge Elementary School and 2 parochial schools. All 30 children were selected through the artwork and slogan contest, which illustrated why it is better to fish than use drugs. Item number 4, Old Bridge Arts. The Culture Arts Committee, in collaboration with Shops at Old Bridge, will be introducing Old Bridge Arts, a monthly art exhibit. The first exhibits will feature modern contemporary pop-style art from a local artist. The exhibit begins at 4 p.m. on Friday, June 21st, 2019, and located at the Shops of Old Bridge on U.S. Route 9. Art will be exhibited from June 21st through July 7th, Fridays and Saturday 4 to 8 p.m., and Sundays 2 to 7 p.m. For information regarding the upcoming exhibits, or if you are interested in displaying art, please contact Culture Arts at 732-721-5600, extension 2060. Item number 5, Bridge to Business Expo. On Wednesday, June 26, 2019, the Mayor's Office of Economic Development will host second annual Bridge to Business Expo at Grand Marquis, located at 1550 US Route 9, from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. This event is free admission to the public, and it will give businesses an opportunity to connect with each other and a public. Free contests, games, raffles, giveaway, and seminars, and more will be happening during the expo. For questions, please call the Office of Economic Development at extension 7920. Item number 6, second annual Family Park Party. The Mayor's Health and Wellness Council will host the second annual Family Park Party at Gike Park on Friday, June 28, 2019, from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. Local businesses and organizations will be sponsoring free activities throughout the afternoon, along with dog costumes, contests, and a free concert featuring 88 MPH and 80s band that begins at 6 p.m. Food trucks will be on site if you would like to purchase foods. This is a rain or shine event. For more information, please call extension 2060. Item number 7, Recreation and Camp Robin Summer Camp Program. The full day, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. 8-week summer camp begins on July 1, 2019 and ends on August 23, 2019. This program is currently full, but there is availability for half-day camp. Half-day, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. summer camp begins on July 1st and ends on August 2nd. Camp Robin Summer Camps, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. begins on July 1st and ends on August 9th. Daily activity includes sports, arts and crafts, games, special events, and daily trips. For additional information and registration, please contact Township Recreation Department at extension 4999 or visit Township website www.oldbridge.com. Item number 8, NJDOT's Commitment to Communities Initiative Award. As a part of New Jersey Department of Transportation commitment to community initiative, Old Bridge Township has been selected to receive $350,000 from Transportation Alternative Set-Aside Program for the Route 516 Pedestrian Safety Sidewalk Improvement Project. The goal of the program is to provide federal funds for community-based, non-traditional surface transportation-related projects designed to enhance the nation's intermodal system. Should you have any question, please contact Old Bridge Township Engineering Department at extension 2330. Item number 9, Old Bridge Township Municipal Complex Improvements. Old Bridge Township contractor began municipal complex improvement in late May 2019. Work to be completed include pavement, resurfacing, sidewalk, reconstruction, and curb replacement within library parking lot. Installation of lighting, foundation, conduits, wiring, poles, and fixtures throughout the complex. Drainage work at various locations and resurfacing of Old Bridge Plaza Drive from Cottrell Road entrance to the Department of Public Works parking lot. This work also includes installation of new HVAC system in the library. Work is expected to be completed by the end of July 2019. Should you have any question, please contact Old Bridge Township Engineering Department at extension 2330. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and website and on television. Item number 10, Old Bridge Culture Arts Concert in the Park. The Old Bridge Culture Arts Committee is proud to announce the second annual Concert in Park series. All concerts this summer will be held on Thursday at Gike Park from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Parking is available at Old Bridge High School parking lot behind the administration building. Concert admission is free. For more information, all culture arts events, please visit oldbridge.com or Old Bridge Facebook page. Item number 11, Township of Old Bridge Choral Society. The Culture Arts Committee is proud to announce recent award of $3,500 from Middlesex County Office of Arts and History. This award will be put towards the establishment of choral society in the Township of Old Bridge. The chorus will be conducted by Stephen Russell, who is well-known conductor of Philadelphia Philharmonic Chorus. Auditions will be held in July and detail will follow. For information regarding the auditions, please contact Culture Arts at extension 2060. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Does any council person have a comment or question? On my left?
I'll move it.
On my right, anyone? Okay, Mr. Merwin made a motion to move it.
Second.
Second. Mrs. Walker?
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
And Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Biscotti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
9 yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shaw. Okay. Next will be our consent agenda. I would like to get a motion in a second. I will bring it out to the public for any questions or comments, and then come back for separations from council.
Move it.
Moved by Mrs. Walker, second by Mr. Rizzoli. I'll now open it up to the public. Is there anyone in the public that would like to be heard on any of our consent agenda items this evening? Seeing no hands, I will close the public portion. I will now go back to council for separations. On my right, Mrs. Walker?
C6.
Okay. Dr. Greenberg? Mr. Biscotti, anything?
No, ma'am.
Okay, on my left? Anyone for separation?
3,
Is that Mr. Merwin?
yes.
Okay, go ahead.
3, 8, 9, 10.
3, 8,
9,
9, and 10, correct? Okay. Anyone else on my left for a separation? Okay, then I would ask for a roll call to move the balance.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
And Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Biscotti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes,
9 yes on the balance.
thank you. C3, Mr. Merwin?
I have a couple of questions on C3 here. Who is the Richmond Group?
So if I could, as you can see, there, and it's on our agenda this evening, and I think it was introduced to council at the last meeting regarding the amendment to the spending plan. The Richmond Development Group has been designated by the redevelopment agency as a redeveloper for Block 20,000, Lot 79.11. That is a property that is currently owned by the Old Bridge Housing Authority, which is slated and has been included in the township's affordable housing plan to be developed with 72 affordable units. And because it's an area in need of redevelopment, the agency itself was required to designate them as the redevelop for that particular site. Because it's affordable housing project, in order for the redeveloper to build this site, they are going to be required to apply to New Jersey HMFA for 9% tax credits. That helps reduce their cost, and as part of their application, what HMFA requires is that the township recognize that there's an obligation for affordable housing, and that the 72 units is part of the township's affordable housing plan that was previously approved by the court back in 2017. So that's who Richmond Development.
What happened to Habitat for Humanity?
That's a different site and a different location. Habitat for Humanity, and that's right, is there on the Lawrence Harbor site, Mr. Merwin, and there's another redeveloper who have taken their place. They basically were not in a position where they could come forward. They were having some administrative issues. And they were initially designated as a redeveloper, but they had changes in administration, the executive director, and part of the problem was for both of these sites is that the court has basically a look-back period. Under the order that was entered as part of our declaratory judgment action, there's actually a 2-year look-back from the time that the court enters final judgment of repose. Now, we're still under our interim judgment of repose, but that 2-year look-back says that after 2 years when it's entered, what has the town done in order to move forward on these municipally sponsored projects? So neither Habitat for Humanity or the RPM, which was the other redeveloper that was sought to develop this site, had moved forward with these two municipally sponsored projects. And these are very time sensitive because if you don't move forward with them and the court doesn't grant you an extension, then it allows the township to be vulnerable to a lawsuit for builder's remedy to make up the difference between these 72 units and the 12 units that are going to be built in Lawrence Harbor. But the Lawrence Harbor project is also moving forward with the same developer who built. Which is it? Which one? They're right. It's a Costanza Group. That's basically, we were fortunate enough because this clock is ticking to be able to find developers who could jump right in, and the Richmond Group especially. We were introduced by them by Costanza, who again did these other developments, and they put together a proposal where they thought that they could do this on the tax credit program, and to get this project moving forward. So that's how we ended up with the Richmond Group, and then with respect to the other site is a Costanza Group, and they're very real developers who will actually be able to get the work done. I think unfortunately the town, I won't say wasted, but there was delayed in 2 years of dealing with these other developers and not moving forward.
Who will be the landlord?
The landlord, that basically Richmond Group will own the property and they'll maintain the property, and they'll have it, the proposals, they'll have an on-site superintendent as part of their, for this complex. They'll continue to own the complex.
Why must they be rental units?
Because that was part of our affordable housing plan that was approved by the court.
Double credits.
And again, the one thing you have to remember, again, this lot, and you're going to see later on this evening, it talks about amending the Crossroads plan. For whatever reason, when the Crossroad plan was done and then further amended, they kept this particular lot in it. It should have been taken out because this lot is owned by the Housing Authority. The Housing Authority's obviously mission is to provide affordable housing. And it's not an easy mission, and I think there's some members here, and they've voted in support of this particular project because it obviously costs money. It's hard to find developers who will actually do this work, but it was still included in that Crossroads project, but it was never intended, this particular lot, 7911, obviously as long as the Housing Authority owned it, to be any type of commercial development. So we're basically enabling the Housing Authority to fulfill its mission of providing the affordable housing. Like I said, I think this has been targeted for this type of development for some time, and it was included in the housing plan that was approved by the court back in 2017.
Well, why wouldn't it stay under the Housing Authority? Why wouldn't we keep this and have our Housing Authority operate this?
Well, because as one of the requirements for them to apply for these tax credits is that they have to show control and ownership. You have to get graded. There's a point system, and because it's very competitive to receive these tax credits.
Housing Authority isn't entitled to the same thing, or?
Well, they can speak for themselves, but they would have, I don't know that they're necessarily or want to go forward and do the development themselves. This enables the work to be done by a third party, but to continue to provide the affordable housing by a third party, and allows them to fulfill the mission.
Also, Mark, they also have a long-term financing on those properties, so they have to have control over those properties until they're fully financed.
My only concern is we're giving $500,000 of money to a private developer.
Well, actually, the funds that the town is going to be giving them is actually a loan. It gets repaid. It's a long term, but it's part of their application. After, I think there's a 40-year deed restriction. I know it's long-term out, but it's actually a long-term loan that after those 40 years, they have to repay the monies that the town provides for them. And I think, Mr. Merwin, the reality is that these types of developments do not get built without assistance from some entity, whether it be the township, the housing authority. It's just, housing in New Jersey is expensive, no matter what you do. And I think everyone can attest to it. And this particular project, they're going to have to extend I think the water and the utility lines as well. So there's some additional cost associated with it. But when they scored this project, because HMFA for the tax credits, they believe that because of its location, because of the fact that it's a redevelopment area, because of the fact that they'll own the property, will enable them to receive the tax credit and then develop the site. It's been, I don't know how long it's been vacant, but it's been some time where it hasn't been developed because it's been that difficult.
My only concern is, we keep wanting affordable housing, but we only give them rental units.
Well,
we don't have, simple fee condos.
Right, so.
You build the same building.
Yeah, so again, and I think this was a discussion when we were going around this back in 2017, as far as the project is concerned, and the projects, it's very difficult to get fee simple. And as a matter of fact, the fact that the Lawrence Harbor project, with this new developer, it's going to be fee simple townhomes, and that is rare, because of the fact that it's hard to get individuals qualified for that, and it's hard to find a developer who would be willing to do that. A smaller project, it's a lot easier, but I think as you, obviously, where there's more units, it becomes more difficult. In my 4 municipalities, in which they've all settled for affordable housing, and some of them, they're large. The Lawrence Harbor project was the only one in which any developer had proffered the ability to do fee simple units. So it's just the reality of what's being built and what they can afford to build, and they wouldn't even be able to do it without the tax credit program, because what ends up happening. See, even when you go with the inclusionary developments, where there's a 20% set aside, in order for you to get 72 units. So 72 is 20%, do the math, what's that, 14, 4, 8, that's 400, about 3, almost 400. You would have to build, in order to get 72 units, let's say even if you do fee simple, in order for you to build 72 units, you would have to build almost 400 market rate in order to get to 72, just short of that. So now we have the opportunity, because it's municipally sponsored, just to do the 72 units. And because they are rentals, we do get extra bonuses and credits. And don't forget that this is one focus for veterans. It's a preference for veterans as well. So, when you look at it, so in order for us to get this number, we would have had to have, and if we don't go forward with it, this and the Costanza development, then we open ourselves up to a developer suing the township to allow them to build 400 units in order to get to 72. So, this is a unique project, but it's certainly, when you look at all the factors for this township, and the fact that you're fulfilling the mission of the property owner, it's hard to beat it as far as, all the items that came together in order to allow it to happen. Because I think you would agree, you'd rather not see a 400-unit development, even if they were fee simple, in order to get, the 72 affordable.
All right, but, and if it becomes run down or anything, who's going to be responsible?
Well, again, ultimately, the property owner is, and Richmond Groups, if you look them up, they're not an insignificant player in this market. They have developments in multiple states. They're a very significant developer. They're not a fly-by-night entity. They have the financial wherewithal. They're in, I know, in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and I know there's some states down south. So they'll continue to own it, and it's their investment. So they certainly have the interest in making sure that it's continued to be maintained. And like any other development, right? Because it's affordable units, that gives us some leverage for more enforcement. And, they're continued subject to our ordinance with respect to code enforcement as well.
Anyone else for any questions, comments? Mr. Murphy?
Yes, are these, all these 72 units, are they all co-apartments?
They are all affordable units.
And do we need them?
Yes, we need them.
Do you have anything in writing or anything?
Well, yeah, we have the settlement agreement that was entered back in March of 2017, which was discussed back in March in 2017 and before that. We have the court order that was entered by Judge Natali in June of 2017, which basically acknowledged the fact that as part of the town's affordable housing compliance, it adopted a housing element. The housing element, which was approved by council and the planning board, included the fact that we would have these 72 units and the other 12 units that are going to be built as part of our housing element affordable housing plan.
Why is this just being brought up tonight? I mean, every person running and all people running this year all voted no more apartment to be built. These were not part of that plan. I will not vote for it because I told the residents I want no more apartments.
Mr. Murphy.
Anybody that votes for this,
Mr. Murphy.
they're wrong.
Don't, let's not get political. It has nothing to
I'm not political. This should have been brought up before tonight. I'd like to table it so we can read it.
The reason why it was brought up tonight was because we have a developer, and this all came about within the last 2 months for us to be in this position. This wasn't something that was hanging out there for months. This developer was introduced to us maybe 2 months ago. I'm not even sure. Maybe 2 months ago, in which it first had to be designated by the redevelopment agency as a redeveloper. Then we had to have discussions, negotiations with them relative to what the plan that they need in order to do the building. There's nothing new here. This goes back. The 72 units that they're committing to build is something that was part of the housing element that was approved back in 2017.
Then why wasn't it brought up then and given us the stuff? I'm just saying, I'm not voting. The other people who run for office,
all right.
Just let them know they're voting to put more apartments up.
So again, there's nothing new here. There's nothing new.
Then why didn't you give it to us?
What? I don't know what giving to you, what it is.
We were told the other day after reading this, no information, no proof, no evidence was given. You're just slipping apartments in there once again, like you've been doing.
So again, so I'm not slipping anything in. You know what?
I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the administration.
No, the administration's not slipping anything in. There was a housing plan that was adopted back in July of 2016. Were you on council in 2016? No. So there was and in that housing element that was adopted and approved by the court in 2017, it specifically references the municipally sponsored 100% affordable housing, 72 units. It's in it, page 47. On page 48, it says municipally sponsored 100% affordable housing for families and or disabled veterans. Refer to the RPM site. Again, this is on page 48, July 2016. Old Bridge Township will sponsor 100% affordable rental housing development that will yield 72 72 units, of which 9 will be for very low-income household. So it's in that. Again, there's a settlement agreement in March of 2017 with respect to affordable housing. The affordable housing references the housing element that was, I just referenced, that was approved by the council and approved by the planning board, and then there was an order entered by Judge Natale in June of 2017 that similarly references the settlement agreement and references the housing plan. So it's there. It's been there. It's been part of our affordable housing plan since 2017 that was approved by the court. There's nothing being slipped in by anybody. This was
Then it
discussed.
should be tabled so we can get that information and review it. If I agree with it, yeah, I'll review, I'll look at it and I'll admit. I'm just saying, I will not vote for the apartments because that's what I told the people. The people will decide whether or not they believe the other people. I'm done.
The housing element's available, it's been available, the settlement agreement's available, it's been available, the judge's order is available, it's been available, it's all been available, there's nothing new here, it's all been approved, it's all been vetted, it's part of our housing element. If you want to subject the township to a lawsuit, builder's remedy suit, in which 400 units are built, that's up to you, Mr. Murphy.
We should have been given the information when we asked for it last week.
All right,
I don't know.
all right.
I don't know, Council.
For-
You keep making
Okay.
statements and accusations that makes no sense.
Okay, I think we've reached,
Yeah, they listen to you.
all right, excuse me, let's keep this civil. Wait, I think there was Mr. Peschetti who had his hand up and Mrs. Walker. Mr. Peschetti.
Yes, thank you. I am on the redevelopment agency, and I understand what the process was. There was, we had to change the preference of the builder because the other builder backed out. And so there was a process. Now, I remember when I was running to be elected, I remember the 72 units because I spoke about it on one of the interviews, that the 72 units were veterans preferred, so it was going to be like a veterans home, and it was all the way out of Marlborough Road. And I talked about smart building, where in this town, we've approved building in areas that are congested. It's not really good. And I had a problem with that. But this section of Marlborough Road, which is close to Texas Road, it's over by the assisted care facility. It's in a great spot. It's not a congested area. It's already zoned, and it's owned by the housing authority. So it doesn't really cost the taxpayer any money to build that there. But it is a requirement, like Mr. Roselli said, it's a requirement of the court. And we have to build. If we don't build, then we're subject either to lawsuit or they're going to have to build like 400 or 500 units to make up the 72 units of affordable housing. So my point is that we do have to be smart in where we place the building. We're going to have buildings. This is a matter of fact in any town across the nation. You know, people want to live in Old Bridge. You're going to have building. We just have to be smart and place the building where we want it. We have to zone it correctly and not put it in very congested areas. This is actually a good area. If anybody knows the area over there, it's perfect. Okay, so there was a process on the redevelopment agency to select the builder. We went through the proper procedure, resolutions, and now the resolution is before the council. Because any redevelopment plan has to start with the council and it ends with the council. It starts with a resolution and ends with an ordinance. Thank you.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes, first, the attorney's correct. This was voted on by the previous council. This is not 72 units that are being slipped in. And anyone that remembers, Dr. Greenberg, Council President Mr. Sahor, and myself, we fought very hard against COA and apartment. For those people that don't know, it's by the state forces towns to build houses. They don't even come to our town. They don't even come to Albridge to look. They just say, this is the amount of homes you can take. They don't look at our police department, our fire departments, our first aid squads, nothing. They just say, these are the houses you could take. Then they come back a few years later and say, now you could take more and more. They're crippling other towns in the state with the burden. And if you want to get something done and you want to stop it, you have to stop the governor, the legislator, and the assembly. They're the only ones that have the power to stop this craziness called COA. It's essential, it's a Democrat initiative, it's social engineering is what it is. I don't know about any of you, but I was never given a house. I had to work 2 jobs, my husband had 3 jobs. We worked very hard to get a home. I don't agree with it, and I think it's wrong what they're doing. I don't like all these apartments either, but this was already agreed upon by the previous council. We will have a lawsuit. Those 72 units were already in the agreement. We're not voting for 72 new apartments. I wouldn't do that. I don't agree with any of this, but like I said, if anybody wants to stop it, you have to vote out the governor, the assembly, and the Senate. You have to go to them. It's the only way you're going to stop it.
I'm sorry, I have something to say about that.
Excuse me, Mrs. Brown, no disrespect. Are you through first,
Yeah,
Mrs. Walker? Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep, Mrs.
Yeah,
Brown.
I just find the comments about people working 2 or 3 jobs to get their homes a little bit egregious. The people who need COA units also typically work 2 or 3 jobs as well. I don't think I would consider COA units a handout. I remember when it was instituted, and yes, even though Mr. Murphy doesn't realize this, it is mandated. We're not just throwing apartments here. At the same time, okay, I'm gonna calm down. I'm really offended when people make comments about people getting handouts. There are people who work just as hard as you do, just as hard as many of us, and they can't get it or get whatever they want. And so these are the provisions made.
Are you through, Mrs. Brown?
Kinda, not really, but I'll stop there.
Okay. Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes, when I needed clarification, I said I reached out to Mr. Shaw and I spoke to Mr. Roselli, sometimes mistaken as Rizzoli, and I was given the proper information, and I just want to thank them for that, giving me that clarification on this whole process. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else on my left? Well, you spoke, John, one moment. Anyone on my right? John, you want to speak?
Okay, I just want to say one thing, in disagreement with Tony. It's by far not, it's definitely not a good place. The traffic is bad now on Ferry Road. It's going to make everybody stuck at that corner. If we can somehow, I'd rather see COA condos or something. I don't like the apartment idea. If we could put them somewhere else, you know what you're going to do to that Marlboro Road there? You're going to make the travel either going out to 18 or out to 9, 10 times worse than it is. Not a good place. Tony, you can go.
Okay.
Madam
Okay.
President, Madam President, since my name was mentioned,
Yes.
can I answer?
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Murphy, what you probably don't know is that this has been vetted out through the planning board, the planner, our planner, and we have a traffic study. Okay, so there are already going to be setbacks for this property so they can resurface Marlborough Road and widen it. There's also, on the intersection of Marlborough Road and Texas Road, there's all improvements going on over there. So there are people looking at it, professionals are looking at the circulation plan, and they are planning for what's happening. Okay? Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else now who hasn't commented?
Yes.
Dr. Greenberg.
I would like to talk. This puts us, as you could see, just what happened on the council. I'm sure this happens in conversation with residents throughout the town. And it is very unfortunate. When you imagine that a housing element is basically presented to the town that you have to meet certain requirements. And that can be very crippling to a town to meet these requirements. It's not something that the town initially would want or even thought of. It is basically a mandate that they have, and it's not just this town, it's happening all over the state. The state of New Jersey is changing. It has changed. This was called the Garden State, just like this town changed from a farming community We're a bedroom community now. And what happens when the state comes in and tells you, you have to do this, and you have to figure out how to do this. And if you don't do it this way, this is what's going to happen. And they tell you how you have to meet so many credits, you have to do it in a certain time fashion, in a certain calendar year to do it. And then it starts all over again. They keep on coming more. So what happens when this is all built out? Imagine, I won't be here, probably most people in this room, but what will this township look like when the town's finished telling us how we have to build our town? No one here likes it. I'm sure if you went through the engineering department, if you went to the planning department, if you went to the mayor, if you went to the business administrator, and all of us on the council. But the law is the law. And until everyone gets together and the law is changed, this is what we have to live by. To make this very clear, though, we're not voting on these 72 apartments. That was already done. This property also is the Housing Authority. We have members in the audience from the Housing Authority. They could possibly speak on it. This wasn't our plan. So when that comes through, and when they talk about the redevelopment agency, this wasn't from the redevelopment agency. The only thing the redevelopment agency was to find a builder that will do this, what was mandated from the state. The attorney said it eloquently. We don't do this. You have to get so many credits. You're talking about 400 units. So it's really, we're faced with the situation, which is better, 400 units or 72 units? So that's what happens. It's, the best of the worst scenario that we can get. I'm not happy with it because I didn't vote for it initially. Anyone can look up my record. They know my position on it. I'll reiterate it if you want, but I do have to do what's now mandated from the court. And all we're doing tonight is finding the developer who will do what's already in existence. Because we're not developing it. We don't have money to build houses. So you have to go out and find a developer. And that's all that this is. And it is very, very unfortunate, but that's the law, and we have to live by it. And 72 is better than 400, but I didn't even vote for the 72. I don't like the situation, and it is the Housing Authority, and that is what we have to live by. So it is very unfortunate, but tonight I have to do the due diligence and now protect the town from a lawsuit and the cost involved with this. And that's how I vote. I vote for the whole town because if we have a lawsuit, that's what affects the whole town. And that's very unfortunate too. But after this, there'll be another round of COA that'll be shoved down our throats. So, that's just how it is. And this is the way it is in New Jersey now.
Yes, Mr. Cahill?
Yeah, so there were references made to the prior council approving this agreement. I want to remind council members what we went through to get this approved. The mayor and the administration brought us an agreement, a settlement that was better than what we would have been dealt with if we didn't agree based on our experts and our legal counsel. We were in, based on the numbers and the professionals, we were in for a whole boatload of units if we didn't come up with an agreement. I don't like COA as much as anybody else, and I voted for the agreement that before the last council because it was a better deal than what we were going to be forced to do. So people making references, I didn't vote for this, I didn't vote for that. I didn't want any of these units in Old Bridge. But you know what? It's in the Constitution, it's mandated, and the administration went out and they got professionals to understand what was going on in the courts, understand what the rulings were, and got a reduced settlement, and some of these elements are things that we're looking at right now. So there's been a couple of dispersions made here tonight, and I want to put those aside because you know what? The last council did the right thing. They did the right thing for the township. They reduced the number of affordable units that we would have been mandated to have, and the administration is the one who drove this. Okay, so I'm really fed up with the whole conversation about COA that we're reliving now, and everybody's saying, oh, I didn't vote for this, I didn't vote for that. Well, guess what? People should have probably voted for the settlement because it was the right thing to do for the town. You talk about doing the right thing for the town? We were really exposed if we didn't vote for that. And thank God the old council did. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cahill. Anyone else on
Madam Chairperson,
Mr. Merwin?
There's being numbers thrown out here that we would have had to build 400 and something units to get these 72. That is unequivocally not true. All right, we are getting these 72 units because that's what they want this development to be, a 72-unit affordable housing unit. We did not have to build 400 and something other units to get to that. My question was a simple question. Why did we always have to have apartments? Why can't we have fee simple condos? That was it. In order, this is what we're deciding to do. All right? And that's the answer. This is what we're doing.
So just to address that, the point was that the 72 units, again, was in the plan, and that's why they're 72 units, rental units. With the rental units, again, you get additional credits. The rationale for the 400 is that, let's say the town did not choose to utilize that piece of property in these 72 units, right? Let's say that we say, no, we're not going to do that. So now what we have to do is find another, because you have to come up with a number, so you have to fill that number somehow. Councilman Cahill's correct. When we negotiated the settlement, we were able to save over 700 units by entering to the settlement agreement as to what our number would have been had we, stayed in the game, so to speak. So the point is that if we didn't choose this route, we being, as part of our plan, then we would have to come up with those 72 units somewhere else. And because, again, it was property that was already owned by the Housing Authority, which is mission to provide affordable housing, that we're able to provide a project that's going to be veteran preferenced, that we don't have to then find another piece of property or to zone another property for these 72 units. If we were going to do that, then the question becomes, again, I've had this discussion, the plan could be rejected, or else you have to designate land where, like you said, why can't we do a market rate or fee simple? Well, in order for us to get 72 credits, we'd have to build almost 400 because there's a 20% inclusionary development set aside. So 20% of 400 is 80, so I'm rounding up a little bit. That's how I got to 400. So you're able to provide the 72 units and just the 72 units without having to designate another piece of property that you have to have in your plan, because somehow you have to come up with this 72, which is part of our overall number.
Okay. There's your answer.
There is a further to, I think, clarify that this property was sold to Housing Authority in 2008 or 2007 or 2008 for that purposes. So the number 72 comes when it was turned over to the property to the Housing Authority. At that time, it was designated. This is not a number coming in 2016-17. It was included in settlement because we knew we had a property in place with the Housing Authority to build that. So that's, it's not like 72 units. And to be simple, one of the problem with the housing, we're struggling with the Lawrence Harbor property, is that to be able to afford somebody to buy, get a mortgage, those are not easy tasks. They need a lot more income than what is required. And that's why most of them are building apartments, because the rental is easier for the new family that's starting new. Somebody's just got a job, they go into the rental. So I think there's some misunderstanding about how this evolved.
My point being is that the 72 was a number you had, but if we didn't use this site, we'd have to come up with that 72 somewhere, right? So it was already there, so we utilized it. Otherwise, you'd have to come up at another location and zone that property so that you could get 72 units. Mr. Merwin's question was, why not fee simple? So in order to get 72 fee simple units, as I've said, I'm beating a dead horse, you have to build almost 400 market rate units, so.
Mr. Downs? Yes, please, if you could come and introduce yourself, please. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Thomas Downs. I'm the attorney for the Housing Authority. And just to give just a little bit of history, and Ms. Soher was on the Housing Authority when this started. We built Mar Manor and Costello Complex. Penrose were the developers, and they had to own the property because that's how it was back in the early 2000s. That gave rise to the board, to the authority, looking to buy affordable property so we can build our own. We were given money from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund back in somewhere in 2004 or 5, and we looked for property. We were able to locate this property, the Crossroads property on Marlborough Road, and we also got a $500,000 grant from the county to be used specifically for affordable housing. It was the intention of the Housing Authority at the outset to own the property, to manage the property, because that would give administrative fees and it would perpetuate the authority. Unfortunately, when we purchased the property, all the federal funding dried up. There was a Hope 6 program which addressed Mr. Merwin's comments that it would be fee simple to individuals if we were able to develop it. That funding dried up. The funding to build housing for apartment rentals, that funding dried up. So we had a piece of property from 2008, Mr. Shaw was correct, from 2008 up until at the end of April when we were approached. 2 years ago, we were approached by RM, that other development company, and they couldn't get their numbers up under that present program to be able to get HMFA funding. The Richmond group came forward, and we had meetings with the administration, ourselves, our professionals, and the Richmond group, and we started talking about what could be done. We saw that there was an ability to use that property, and we're giving the property, a portion of the property, not the entire thing, there's 27 acres, we're giving approximately between 14 and 16 acres for them to develop these 72 units. That's the authority's contribution. That's the contribution which was your affordable housing money, and that's also the $500,000 that we got from the county. The county's $500,000 is specifically designated that it has to be affordable housing with veterans preference, disabled preference, and that is being kept. We're negotiating a contract with them right now, and that is all in there, and there's also a right of reverter going to be in the contract, in the deed, which the property has to stay for affordable housing for at least 30 years, because that's the county's deal with us. We're trying to reserve the additional 12 to 13 acres so that we can build an additional piece of property, additional units. But unfortunately, this is wetlands. This is the area. This is some of the area that used to be Olympia and York. So there's a lot of the property is not developable because it's wetlands. So the bottom line is, we're going to do our part. We would love to have owned it, but we don't have the ability to get the funding to do it. And that's the thing in a nutshell. It's to build this out, it's going to take about $20 to $30 million. We just don't have the ability to do that. So our contribution will be property, and we go from there. Anybody have any questions?
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Downs? Good?
Okay? Thank you.
Okay, Tom, thank you very much for coming up. So we're going to close the council comments? All right, moved it. Mr. Rizzoli moved it. Second. Mr. Cahill.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
I don't think we have much choices to the attorney.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
No.
Mr. Piscatty?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
8 yes, 1 no.
Next will be
Wait,
C6.
wait,
Oh,
One
sorry.
question to the attorney. We have one member of the redevelopment authority and one member of the housing authority. Should they have been participating?
Yeah, as far as this,
Wait.
yeah, because the actions are different and they're not in conflict, they're consistent.
Okay.
Who's the housing authority? No, she's right. No, I haven't been on the housing authority in about 10 years.
It's not, there's no inconsistency, it's a consistency because that's part of what we're doing.
Okay?
C6.
All right, next is C6. Mr. Merwin?
No, it's Mrs. Walker. That was Mrs. Walker.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. C6, Mrs. Walker. I had DW. Okay,
Yes,
Mrs.
I just
Walker.
wanted to separate it so the people at home, because when we vote on things, people at home don't have any idea what we're voting on. I'm just going to read it so people at home know what's happening. It's authorizing the submission of an application requesting funding for the 2019 NJDOT Municipal Aid Program in the amount of $379,187 for the Phase 1 resurfacing of Phillips Drive from Rock Hill Road to Appleton Terrace. I just want people know that if we get this, the road will be paved over here in the arbors.
Yeah, that's.
I just like to separate things because people at home, if you're watching, you don't really have any idea what we're voting on.
No, you're right. That was very good. That's a very good program that we apply for every year. Thank you, Mrs. Walker.
And if nobody has a question, I'd like to move it.
Moved by Mrs.
Move it.
Walker.
Second.
Okay, second.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Kale?
Yes.
Dr. Greenberg? Yes. Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Piscitty?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
9 yes.
Now, C8, Mr. Merwin.
I'm sorry, amending the 2015 to 25 Affordable Housing Trust Fund Spending Plan. In here you have $200,000 a year set aside for rehabilitation.
She has to come up.
Right,
Hey, can you please come forward? Thank you.
Introduce yourself.
Yes, please.
Just for the record, Megan York, our planning consultant for community grants and planning, along with our planner, Ms. Watt.
Good evening, ladies.
So yes, a total of 1.4 million is set aside for the housing rehabilitation program, and that averages out to about $200,000 per year.
And what will that encompass? What could people get out of that?
That would be an estimated 10 households a year assisted, and that would be a $20,000 program to address code violations in the house for income-eligible households.
So would it be a new roof or a
New
windows?
roof, major
or-
plumbing systems, HVAC, window replacement, that sort of thing.
And how would the public know that that is
Everywhere.
available to them?
It's currently marketed on the Township website, and we do receive a lot of applications. Working with homeowners who've applied, I have some notes here. To date, 140 homeowners have showed interest in the program. We've worked through 29 applications. We currently are working with 7 households right now through the program.
Very good.
We also have information related to the rehab program in each of our departments, like the planning department, the engineering department. So if somebody reaches out to us and asks, we provide them with that information.
Okay. Where was there's one more thing in here that I have a question on, and it's the energy-like assistance, we're paying developers, or we'll pay like Richmond money so that they put in the right stuff.
Yeah, that program is actually for the Costanza project for the 12 for sale units, and that's to allow for upgrades in HVAC systems, roofing materials that will ultimately reduce the utility costs of the affordable homeowners after they purchase the homes.
Very good. That's my only question.
Okay, does anyone else have a question?
Just want to note that actually, it should be revised May of 2019. I think the plan covers, it has April of 2019 in one place and May of 2019 in another, but it should be May of 2019, and the resolution should be amended to reflect May of 2019. That's the revision date.
Okay.
Okay, anyone else? Do I have a motion?
Move it with the amendment.
Second.
Okay, moved by Mr. Cahill with the amendment. Yes, please.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Both days.
Thank you.
Mr. Pescetti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
I do want to, and I should have done it before, but it doesn't matter. I just want to also note that the spending plan approval subject to court approval as well.
8 present, 8, yes, sorry.
Thank you. Next will be C9, Mr. Merwin.
This was for the rejecting the control farm site improvement Phase 1 for $1.7 million to Brennan Brothers Contracting. How much were we over?
I believe the engineering estimate was $1.3 million, so significantly over, and we only had one bidder on this project.
Very good. I got no other questions.
Anyone else for a question on C9?
I'll move it if nobody
Okay.
else does.
Okay, moved by Mr. Merwin, second by Mr. Cahill.
Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
And Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy, Mr. Murphy's off. Mr. Pescetti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
8 yes.
Next will be C10, Mr. Merwin.
Any reason why we have that increase?
Yeah, this was, we added an additional road. Avon Street was added. With the balance of the funds available, we added additional street, and so that's what the increase is for.
Okay.
Okay, for additional roads.
If nobody else has a question.
Okay, anyone else? No. Moved by Mr. Merwin.
Second.
Second by Dr. Greenberg Belli.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
And Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Pescetti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
8 yes.
Next will be C16, Dr. Greenberg Belli.
Yes, this is just, excuse me, this is just for clarification where the sidewalk will go. From what point, extend from where to where?
C16.
60, pedestrian safety
It's,
sidewalk improvements.
It's going to be on 516, linking the town center with High Point. So from the high school, there'll be a continuous sidewalk to this location. So it's quite a,
Oh,
it's
So
going
it's
to be
gonna
quite a
go
hill to
east.
climb, no pun intended, but we want to
Yes.
get safe passage for both pedestrians and bicyclists from the high school through High Point and then down to Society Hill where sidewalk exists. So it's a pretty long sidewalk.
don't make it one contiguous.
We have people walking down 516.
Yeah, it's not good. We
Not
need a
good.
sidewalk.
No, so
And this is
this'll
through
be
the
big.
improvement program,
Program.
so it's not through our township
A very
budget.
ambitious project.
Okay, thank you so much for that clarification. I'm sure the public wanted to know where it goes. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else have any questions? I'll move it. Moved by Dr. Greenberg, second by Mr. Rizzoli.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
And Dr. Greenberg? Yes. Mr. Merwin? Yes. Mr. Pescetti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Okay, yes.
8 yes.
Okay, we're just going to deviate a moment from the agenda. Okay. Okay. He's passing out the resolutions. You read, I read.
Well, you can, if you want to bring it up.
Okay, yes. The next thing we're going to be doing is we have interviewed for several people for a position for our clerk's office for a deputy clerk. And we've gone through a very long vetting process. We've interviewed several candidates, the township clerk, as well as administration, the mayor, and then myself and council members. So we have spent quite a while trying to find just the right person for this position. And we believe that we have found someone who will be very well suited for this position this evening. So that is a position that is done by resolution of council.
Yes.
Okay.
So at your seat, again, the resolution, Township Code provides for a deputy municipal clerk's position. Statute also provides for it as well. It's a position that had previously been vacant. So again, as Council President had indicated, there's a shortage of employees there, I think as everybody knows, through retirements, and this was a long, arduous process. And I work with many clerk's offices, so this office is very busy for a lot of different reasons, not to mention my favorite Oprah. But they certainly need someone who is experienced and capable, and I think through the interview process, Bonnie Brooks has all the requisite, one of the requirements that the township had was that they were already a registered clerk, had her certification, which she does. She has a lot of experience, and again, this resolution would appoint Ms. Brooks to the deputy municipal clerk position, with starting salary of $72,000, and then increasing to $75,000 after completion of 6 months. And since it's council's, clerk's office's council's jurisdiction, and it's a deputy municipal clerk, it's subject to appointment by resolution.
Make a motion.
Second.
Okay, moved by Mr. Paschetti, second by Mrs. Walker.
Can we ask questions now? It's too late.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. You can ask something, John, if you want to ask before we, yeah, no, you weren't there today.
Stella agrees with this, right? I just saw her at the bottom. What council people interviewed? You said several council people.
Well, this evening we had all the council people were asked to come and to meet the potential candidate. If you had any questions or concerns.
Okay, that's it.
Okay.
Okay, Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Paschetti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Saha?
Yes.
9 yes.
Okay, all right. Next, we'll have Vina come and do a presentation, please.
Just for council and the public, this is related to the redevelopment project on Marbell Road that the other resolutions we just adopted relate to. Again, this particular parcel is owned by the Housing Authority, and it's included in the Crossroads redevelopment plan. It should have been taken out of that plan when the Housing Authority purchased it, but it wasn't, and to some extent, because it's in the redevelopment area, it actually helps the potential developer get credit, so it'll work out. So because it's in the Crossroads redevelopment plan, it's necessary to amend that particular plan to account for this particular lot, and because we have to change some of the zoning. And as Mr. Downs had alerted, the overall lot's about 26 acres, but we're only proposing to use 14.5 acres for the particular project. So Avina's going to do a presentation to the council showing what the proposed amendment is, and then redevelopment plans get amended or adopted by way of ordinance. So after the presentation, we can ask any questions. We ask that we move forward with the introduction of the amendment to the plan. And the reason why we're on this timeline is because the developer is on a strict timeline. He's seeking to do his application for his tax credits in September of this year. And like I said before, we received approval back in 2017. Typically, municipally sponsored projects have a 2-year look back. We're somewhat delayed because we haven't received final approval for various reasons, but because he has to make his application in September, one of the conditions of that application is that he at least has preliminary site plan approval. So again, redevelopment plans act as the zoning ordinance for a particular site. Ultimately, even though there's a redevelopment plan in place, anyone who's going to build under that redevelopment plan still has to receive site plan approval by the planning board. So think of this as if it's a zoning ordinance, that it's a creation of a zoning ordinance, and that's the process that we're following. The ordinance, the plan gets introduced, gets referred to the planning board. They'll do a consistency review with the master plan, refers back to the council to make sure it's consistent. They can make some other comments relative to other aspects of the plan if they choose, and then ultimately council would adopt the ordinance, and then it becomes in this instance, it's going to act as the base zoning for the particular lot, not as an overlay. So with that.
Council President, if I may, I want to take this opportunity to thank both Housing Authority and their professionals, and also the professionals and the members of the redevelopment agency, who both have supported all the members. I believe that the transfer of the property resolution was done by Housing Authority already, and I think unanimously supported by all the members of the Housing Authority for this transfer, this project. I think that, it's important that we meet our obligations, and their support made it possible.
Yes, definitely.
So I want to thank both of them.
Yes, both agencies were very cooperative and collaborative, and that's what we need to do.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
So I'm here to present the redevelopment plan amendment for a portion of Lot 79.11, Block 20,000, owned by the Housing Authority, and for creation of affordable housing. But even before I really talk about the plan, last time when I was in front of the council and I came with the spending plan amendment, I had promised the council that before I get into the plan amendment, I will give an overview of the housing plan and what really happened. So among the material that was circulated, you have a copy of the Superior Court judgment approving the housing element and fair share plan. You have 4 pages. These are straight from the housing element and fair share plan that was court approved. I have a copy of the entire housing plan in front of me if somebody wants to refer to it. And then I have a resolution that was circulated, which was the Housing Authority transferring a portion of their property to the Richmond Group. And then
They authorized the transfer. The transfer hasn't been completed yet.
correct. And the fourth handout is the plan in itself. The plan was uploaded on Novus, but there were minor edits to it, so this is a clean copy for everybody's review. So, in July of 2015, the Township of Old Bridge filed a declaratory action for their judgment of compliance of the housing element and fair share plan. As a part of the application, the Township sought for approval of the housing element and fair share plan. Subsequently, in June of 2017, the court approved the housing element and fair share plan. This property was a part of that approval and that housing element and fair share plan. What I have done for you is, first is the court order approving the housing element and fair share plan. If you look at page 2 of the court approval, the approval refers back to the housing element fair share plan. The planning board approved it, the council endorsed it, and it was approved subject to conditions. If you look at the second condition on the third page, it again talks about the housing element and fair share plan, and that everything that was included in the housing element and fair share plan, we have to abide by. On the second handout, which I have, is first page is the prior round surplus. So I remember when I came to present the amendment to the spending plan, there was questions about why not have it age restricted? Why is this affordable to families and disabled veterans? So what I have in front of you in this handout, first page, is the prior round surplus. What happened is when the township addressed its prior round obligation, we had surplus 218 age-restricted units. And we got those from Rotary House age-restricted, Costanza Rest Care age-restricted, and Meher Manor. That counted for 218 units which were carried in this housing plan period. Now, because we had surplus from the prior round, we have to use them up in this current round, which is till 2025. On the next page of the plan is our current obligation, that is till 2025. After the court settled in with Township of Old Bridge, our overall obligation came down from 2,000 some units to 1,396 units. Now, if you notice, there is a requirement that only 25% of this total obligation can be age restricted. So at the bottom of the page, you have 349 units as our obligation for this round, which could be age restricted. Going to the next page, obligation compliance, where we have 1,396 overall affordable units. You'll notice that prior round surplus was 218. So out of the 349, we included the 218 from prior round surplus, and then Brunetti Inclusionary Development had additional 131 age-restricted affordable units. So for this round, up to 2025, we have maxed out on the age-restricted cap, which we are allowed. What that means is, even if we have another age-restricted affordable housing development, we cannot really apply those credits to this round. So for the period of 2025, it will be carried over for the next round. So that is why when the housing plan was written, this site, which was owned by Housing Authority, was slated for family and or disabled veterans. The next page is the actual description. That's page 48 of the Housing Element and Fair Share Plan, where we have municipally sponsored, the second paragraph, 100% affordable housing for family and disabled veterans. At that time, RPM was the designated redeveloper. And here it clearly states that we would build 72 units on this property. Now, this property, the total acreage on this property is roughly 27 acres. The plan amendment, which I will be presenting now, is actually only for 14.5 acres of this entire parcel. So the lot 79.11 block 20,000, the housing authority owned property, actually measures 27 acres. The Richmond Group, or this plan, actually talks about 14.5 acres, which is located northwest to the intersection of Marlborough Road and East Greystone Road. On the screen is the aerial map for this plan amendment, and what you see in the dotted yellow is the entire Crossroad redevelopment plan area. What you see in red is the area that is impacted by this plan amendment. So the plan amendment only talks about this 14.5 acre portion of the housing authority parcel. The parcel, again, is located on the northwest quadrant of the intersection of Marlborough Road and East Greystone Road. The entire parcel is the property to the west of Marlborough Road and measures 27 acres. We are using only 14.5 acres of it. On the first page of the plan amendment, the report, you will notice that there's language that says that this plan amendment is a non-condemnation plan, wherein the township will not use eminent domain to acquire land. Plus, it also says that the original Crossroad redevelopment plan still remains valid and is not changed. So all the properties that were impacted by the Crossroad redevelopment, the original Crossroad redevelopment plan still remains valid. The remainder portion of block 20,000, lot 79.11 is also a part of the original Crossroad redevelopment plan. Now, what we did with this plan is actually created a new sub-district called as Affordable Housing Sub-District. This sub-district measures 14.5 acres. This parcel, we have confirmed with OBMUA, has water and sewer in the vicinity. The COA, or the third round obligation, at that time had site suitability criteria. And one of the criterion was that the site be served with water and sewer, which we have confirmed. The other was that it would have proper access. So the property is accessed by Marlborough Road. It has direct access from Marlborough Road. It has access to Route 18 via Marlborough Road again, and then to Route 9 via Texas Road. So the site clearly meets the the site suitability criteria for affordable housing. And if you notice on this next plan, this circle is actually the half-mile radius from the property. So one of the criteria is that it should have access to public transport. So this is a bus stop at the intersection of Texas Road and Marlborough Road. That's NJ Transit bus number 138, and it is less than half a mile from the property. Again, the plan area is only for this portion of block 20,000, lot 79.11, and we create an affordable housing sub-district for it so that we can have different design standards, bulk requirements, which are suitable for the type of development in this area. The permitted uses in this AH sub-district are multifamily for rent residential use containing 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom units affordable to very low income, and moderate income families, with preference for disabled veterans in accordance with the state standards. Now, this 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom is actually a UHAC, Uniform Affordable Housing Control requirement. You need to have a certain mix. There's a percentage of 3-bedroom that is required to be among the total total affordable housing units that are created. The accessory use is permitted in this sub-district is pertaining to uses that are incidental to the primary use, which is residential use. So like a clubhouse, a fitness center, a play area is what is allowed. If you look at the schedule of bulk requirements, this portion is actually, if you look at our zoning map, it is a part of the EDO 3 zone. So the bulk requirements and the design standards are quite consistent with what we required in the EDO 3. So there is a minimum front yard setback requirement, a maximum front yard setback requirement, only to encourage parking to the rear side of the building, because we really don't want parking in front. So you'll notice that with the way the designs, the bulk requirements are laid out, parking will be at the back, the buildings will be on the front, but there'll be a 40 feet setback. There will be a buffer requirement along the street right of way. There'll be landscaping, screening buffers required, sidewalks that are 5 feet wide, and we have a requirement in that says that you cannot have more than 3 principal buildings. So we don't want to encourage 4 or 5 or more. So it restricts it to 3 principal buildings and 2 accessory buildings. We require that there are design improvements, like they add bike racks, they have benches and clear sidewalks. Anything that is not impervious would be converted into landscape areas. So there will be landscaping requirements for the plan. You notice that this is just an example of the building elevation. So if the design standards have been carefully crafted so that we don't have blank facades. If there is a long facade, there be recessions. There will be some recessing or projections. There'll be dormers on the building. We also require that the middle of the first story of the building have brick or stone, because that helps it break the look of the building. The design standards were carefully crafted, keeping in mind that we don't want to have buildings that don't have an architectural feature or are not aesthetically pleasing. But that's pretty much it. I know Councilman Piscatty had mentioned about the right-of-way dedication. So this property has a slight niche along Marlborough Road. The plan recommends that whoever the developer is dedicates 18.5 feet along the frontage of Marlborough Road, so that there is room for expansion there and site improvements. The primary access will be on Marlborough Road. So overall, I am really excited about this project. I think it is going to come out really well. You're welcome.
Questions, Vina? Mr. Merwin?
Yeah, the only question I have is permitted uses.
Yes.
We went from veteran preference to disabled veterans.
Yes, because that is the language in the housing element and fair share plan. So if you look at the handout 2, the last page of the handout is the exact language that was crafted in the court-approved housing element and fair share plan.
This one.
Page 48.
Oh, and the other handout. This one here?
Yes, 4 page.
The last page of it. So the second paragraph, municipally sponsored 100% affordable housing for families and or disabled veterans. So that was what was included in the court-approved plan. So I'm retaining the same language in here.
But it doesn't, again, Mr. Merwin wouldn't preclude, you can't necessarily mandate if there's a waiting list and there's other individuals. Let's say you're not a disabled veteran, but a veteran, and you don't have a waiting list. It doesn't mean that, that veteran wouldn't have an opportunity to get in there as well.
They would be able to.
Correct, they would be, yep.
Okay.
Anyone else?
You said that the veterans would just be given an advance notice of the building, right? They're just given preference initially?
It will be advertised for everybody, but if you are a disabled veterans, you do have preference, but doesn't mean that we'll hold those seats only for disabled veterans. There is a possibility that we don't have so many disabled veterans that apply for these affordable units.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
What will the process be to, who will be running the list? And is it the Housing Authority, the Redevelopment Authority, Richmond?
You should have had, what's going here? So Megan should have stayed. So basically, the UHAC regulations have marketing requirements. Those are what governs affordable housing. So those marketing requirements that we follow now will continue to be followed. So they would work in conjunction with our administrative agent, which right now is Megan York, and unfortunately she left. That they could do the marketing themselves, but they still have to follow what we do, meaning that there's certain areas that you have to advertise in the township, beyond the town, in township, because we're in a region, and they have to be placed in certain locations. That's all part of our housing element. So those requirements for marketing will continue to be followed for this particular site and any affordable site. So I think Richmond, because they're in their experience and they provide affordable housing, I think they had intended to do the marketing themselves, but whatever marketing plan they do, we have to review and approve, and it has to meet the regulations.
I believe CGPH, Megan York has been in touch with them and they have been coordinating.
If somebody.
We'll be adding on our website, our Facebook.
Well, if somebody
Yes.
signed up with who? Today, tomorrow, are they on that list?
Well, we have a waiting list now, so arguably, yes, they would be. So you have a waiting list now.
Okay, where is the list so that?
Community Grants and Planning maintains, Community Grants and Planning maintains it. I don't know if your office has a copy of it, but we have it because they maintain the waiting list.
Yeah.
And just for the council's information, that waiting list is up over 5,000 of Old Bridge residents looking for affordable housing. So please keep that in mind.
Yeah, I may be wrong. Did you mention age restricted? You didn't?
No.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
The issue was that I think Vina had indicated, I think last time she was before the council, why isn't this housing age restricted? You're only required to have a certain percentage of your overall affordable units as age restricted. We already met that requirement at other sites in conjunction with credits from prior rounds, so that we didn't have the ability to make this age restricted. Besides, that wasn't what the Housing Authority wanted either. They didn't have age restricted, so it wouldn't have been age restricted.
There's a number of age-restricted projects occurring right now in town that are not part of this plan, so.
What is the age? When they say age restricted?
Well, again, it depends. It depends on, there's two different programs. There's a 55 and there's a 62, right? A 62, depending on what the builder applies for.
Okay, I thought they made that unconstitutional or something because there's prejudice against people under that age. They didn't do that?
Not New Jersey.
Okay.
Yes.
Does anyone else? Mr. Cahill?
Just one comment. You made maybe this is a slip of the tongue, but you said that we're not going to use eminent domain. Old Bridge has an eminent domain ordinance, so we never will use eminent domain.
Generally, in any redevelopment plan that is a non-condemnation plan, there is language that says that this plan is non-condemnation. I'm aware we have that ordinance, but it's language that is required in the plan amendment.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that was on the record. We have an eminent domain.
Yeah,
ordinance.
Ms. Cahill,
Based on the local redevelopment
law,
and housing law.
The state law allows for you to have either a condemnation or non-condemnation plan, which would supersede our ordinance anyway.
All right,
Okay, interesting.
anyone else on my left? On my right, Dr. Greenberg, and then Mr. Pischetti, did you? Okay.
The positive thing about this plan is that it does have a veteran's preference, and that's very nice to see because we know very well that our veterans, what they did to serve this country, and, it's very important that they do have the preference there. Second of all, uniquely by this property, it creates because of the land, whether it's the wetlands or anything, it creates a green belt naturally. So we don't even have to, make that an issue. It's going to exist. And then thirdly, I'm glad that you have input with the architect, that you make the building interesting, aesthetically, pleasing to the eye, and not a sterile, building. So I compliment you for your input on that. And I thank you very much for your presentation. It was very informative.
I would invite the council, if you look up the Richmond Group, you go on their website, and take a look at the product that they have. I mean, you'll be impressed. They really, they stress that with us, that, just because it's affordable doesn't mean it's going to be cheap or it's going to look cheap. That they stress that they put nice amenities and because they own it. So I would encourage you, it's just the way it sounds, Richmond, RICHMAN, the Richmond Group, the Cedar product.
And actually, we will have an opportunity to review, like the planning department and the engineering department will review the plans when they are submitted, because they will have to be approved by the planning board. So the nitty-gritty of the development will actually occur at the planning board stage. But yes, having that language in the design standards is very important, because if there's no language, then it's very hard to get something out of a developer.
Mr. Pischetti?
Yes, I too want to thank you very much. It's the second time I'm seeing the plan, and you did a really good job with it. I know you worked really hard on it, and I'm proud of our planner today, really am.
Okay.
And I want to just echo the comments that Dr. Greenberg said about veterans preferred. That's great, because I always knew that was going to be a veterans, but it's veterans home. That's great. The other thing, I'm on the redevelopment agency. That's when I first saw the plan, and I just wanted to just echo your comments about the redevelopment law says that you have to say whether it's a condemnation or a non-condemnation in the plan. Right. So thank you very much. Good job.
Anyone else? Dr. Greenberg?
Just one other thing that I wanted to add. Sometimes when you look where the property is, I always feel that, still when you think of low income, sometimes, they need accessibility to things also. So I'm glad that the bus is there and, that they do have access.
One of
Because
the process of criteria is to vet the location, and the developer wouldn't even enter into this agreement unless he did his due diligence, and it met a scoring, and actually the property and the location scored high, enough for him to move forward.
One of the questions he asked us right off the bat was, where's the nearest bus location?
Bus stop. Access to retail, access to amenities, it all plays a part. So this is a prime a good location that meets the criteria for this developer to move forward with financing.
Because that's some of the things that that we hear town-wide. For example, at Moore Manor, they do have the busing now, and because, we got involved, it has improved. But still, they felt very isolated for a while, so I'm glad that, we made some improvements over there also. And that's why when I looked at this plan, they need accessibility. They need the
And there's been big investments by the township, by the MUA for development in this area. The sewer user, water, so.
Okay, anyone else?
Yes.
Speak into the mic, John.
Yes. This is the water tank. Yes.
Anyone else for any comments?
Thank you.
Okay, I'll just close the comments by also saying thank you for the presentation. It was very well done. I like the fact that there's collaboration among the Housing Authority, as well as the Redevelopment Agency, the council, the administration. We are one town, and we have to, make sure that we provide the best we can for our residents. I'd like to thank Mr. Downs, also the Housing Authority attorney, for being here to help us.
Thomas Downs, the attorney for the Housing Authority. Our total property is got a restriction on it for affordable housing, and this particular amendment to the plan takes the other 14 acres or 13 and a half acres out of the restriction. You could include the entire, I think it would be beneficial to the authority to include the entire parcel in as part of the sub-development area, because the next parcel will be developed for affordable housing also, because that's the nature of our grant with the county. So I just, if you would take that under advisement possibly, and put the whole parcel in that subdivision.
A little late.
Sub-area, I should say.
Have to create
We will have to create an amendment, but also knowing that there are wetlands on that remaining portion. So I had actually looked at it. Out of the 27 acres, if we take away 14.5 acres for this project, what is left is almost 12.5 acres. Out of that, 8.5 acres is wetlands. The remaining 4.5 acres, what is left, is not deep enough. So maybe, I don't know how we can fit in parking and any more units there, but that's something we will have to look at in detail before we include it in the plan.
Tom, I think one of the, we had looked at that, right, I talked to Davina about that. From our perspective, we didn't want to necessarily use more property than we needed as part of the amendment.
And neither did we, but.
Right. So, I mean, it certainly, doesn't preclude us from amending it further. It's a lot easier when you have a redeveloper and you know what you're going to build, because you can get input from the redeveloper. So when it comes to that point, because you own it, you ultimately control, we'd be doing a similar process.
We're trying to get him to develop the detention pond to include the other areas so that we can build
on it. Well, look, if he can come back, if he can do, he can always come back and amend it. It's not a heavy lift, but it's the fact that we don't have, this was crafted to meet what their requirements are, so that's why it was done. But to the extent that, because you're gonna need a delineation and you're not gonna really know what you can do, it'll be easier once we know that and we have sort of a concept plan that we can work around.
And so that the council knows, we've gone so far as to provide them our Phase 1 environmental study, so they didn't have to duplicate that, or just had to update it, which saved an awful lot of money for them, as well as providing the survey and the topographical information, authorize our surveyor to give that information to them too, to save them.
Yeah, this was a situation, unlike the federal government, where multiple municipal entities and agencies worked cooperatively.
Yes, once we got figured out what it was about, yes, we did.
That's the key. Thank you so much, Mr. Downs. Anyone else that has any questions? Thank you again for taking the time.
Thank you.
It was a great presentation. Okay, so, yep, we're going to move for first reading, FR1, ordinance approving the redevelopment plan owned by the Housing Authority and for creation of affordable housing. Do I have a motion?
Second?
Mr. Rizzoli? And Mr. Peschetti, correct?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Peschetti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soho?
Yes.
9 yes.
Okay, next will be discussion ordinances, DO1, the redevelop,
We just did that one.
I mean, I'm sorry.
If I could sort of, and I have Pinders here, D2, 3, 4, and 5
Right.
are similar. If you recall 2 meetings ago, where this is part of the Woodhaven development in which the developer was supposed to put improvements on intersections. So, and in order, when that happens, they have to be codified because that's part of the requirement of the tri-party agreement. So each of these ordinances, DOT, DO3, DO4, and DO5, are the intersections where the Woodhaven developer installed those lights at those particular intersections.
Make a motion to move DO2 to DO3, DO4, DO5 as a package.
Second.
Second.
Okay. Mr. Cahill made a motion.
Especially since they're operating already.
Mr. Rizzoli made a second.
Slow me down the way home.
Yeah.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
And Dr. Greenberg? Yes. Mr. Merwin? Mr.
Yes.
Murphy? Mr. Peschetti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
9 yes.
Next will be public comments on any subject matter. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to be heard this evening on any subject? Seeing no hands, I will close the public portion. Next will be discussion, D1, to make Disbrow Road a one-way. Mrs. Walker?
Yes, as a lot of you probably are aware, there's a big problem at Lambert's and Amboy and Disbrow, and the state is unwilling to put a light at Amboy and 34. I think we've been working on it for over 20 years, and the state just refuses to address it. And without a light there, it causes a lot of the traffic because they don't want to go to that intersection because it's very, it's scary. Actually, when my kids got their license, I forbid them to go out there. It's so dangerous. So a lot of people come around down Disbrow, and Disbrow wasn't really made to handle all that traffic. There's a little sharp curve there. It's very difficult for school buses to get around it. Actually, the fire trucks don't even go down it now because they actually almost got sideswiped one time, so they don't even go down it. And so, like I was coming down the other day, and a car was on the other side of the road and almost hit me head on. They're always speeding, hopefully with the new targeted enforcement. But myself and Mary Sohor and Dr. Greenberg, we have been discussing different things if we could maybe fix this situation here, because we're really worried about the safety of people. A lot of people really just don't stop at the stop sign because I live over there. We came up with a few ideas, and we were thinking of possibly making Disbrow one-way. You can go to the sports club, but from Carrington Court, it would be a one-way. And it would virtually eliminate 90% of all the accidents because most of them happen from people coming from Disbrow to Amboy. And there's that hill over there, and people come flying over the hill coming from 34, and that's how most of the collisions occur. So if you were to make Disbrow one-way, it would eliminate all that traffic coming out there. It's just something I thought we should look at. There was another option thrown around that maybe coming down Lambertson before you got to Amboy, if we could cut over on the farm and come out onto Amboy further down, and that would stop the straight across, and that maybe would prevent some an accident. So these are just some ideas we wanted to throw around that wouldn't be costly, and until maybe the state came to their senses and decided to put the light at Amboy and 34.
Anyone else?
Madam Chairperson.
Oh, Mr. Pischetti had his hand up, and then I'll come to you, Mr. Merwin. Yes, Mr. Pischetti.
Did you guys talk to the residents?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have spoken to quite a few residents. When there's accidents, I'm out there talking to them, and I know a lot of the people over there. Yes.
Everyone seems to be in favor
Well, they
of that.
won't be affected by it. They'll have less traffic come by their house because the one way, the way we were talking about it would be not affecting them. It would just be from the New York Sports Club. They would be able to go in and out of their development.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes. I too spoke with some of the residents in the area there. And which way are we proposing to make the street one way?
It would be, you could go into the New York Sports Club from 34. You could go from Amboy to Disbrow, but you wouldn't be able to go right through.
What do you mean you wouldn't be able to go right? The only one-way traffic on Disbrow that I would...
You could only go from Amboy to 34. You can't go from 34 to Amboy.
And I wholeheartedly agree with you. We had that discussion, I believe, the last time we spoke about this. That's the only thing, because it's the only controlled intersection on Route 34.
Yes, and until the state decides, I don't understand why the state refuses to put a light over there. It's getting worse and worse over there. You cannot get out from Amboy onto 34 at certain times of the day. The school buses, and it's just very, very dangerous situation.
Well, that is another fly in the ointment, is that we would probably disrupt the school bus routes and then make them go to that dangerous intersection at Route 34 in Amboy. That's the only problem, because they all utilize Disbrow to come out, to go to the high school and to the grade 9 center. And, I mean, that's the only thing, not the only, it's not a good thing, but the school buses that usually take that way would have to go out to 34 in Marshtown and Amboy. And
I just wish the state would just put a light there.
Did they give a reason?
What?
The light is approximately 2 years out. It's been vetted. I think you've seen the plan.
Yeah.
But the intersection is getting signalized, but it's going to be
It's not
sometime.
exactly going to be perfect. You won't be able to make a right-hand turn. It's not the
Had a-
right way,
a
but I
lengthy
thought
discussion about
if
it.
this was temporary, I thought maybe we could do this temporary until the light comes, just to stop accidents.
It's a very frustrating road. It really, really is. We put up the target zone signs now, but it really is a very difficult, very dangerous place, and we're just trying to avoid any more accidents over there, and we really don't want it to be unaddressed, you know?
I agree that going out, to that intersection, it should be a one-way, except we have the problem with the school buses. Then we're sending them up to that intersection. So, I mean, you got, it's a double-edged sword. And, I mean, we should really be pounding our fists down and screaming for the state to get this traffic light in.
We
I
have-
mean, we've only been waiting 30, 40 years. It's ridiculous.
We've gone to the DOT, the mayor's gone there, we've had senators go
We send
there.
resolutions
Tell you what we did in Lawrence Harbor when they
resolutions.
wouldn't put a center divider in, we closed the highway down. All right, and then all of a sudden, real quick, they started listening. And I would suggest we do that again. Get out there and protest. They don't like that either.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Chairman,
yes, Mr. Murphy.
My only concern is if you make it one way, will they not continue with the street light and say, oh, they fixed it? Okay. And
streetlight,
do they give you a reason why they won't put one there?
Money.
It's been a long, they have so many weights and measures, and we've been asking so many years that now it's just the residents, we'd like to provide them with some safety. Does anyone else have any comments?
Make a motion here?
No, I think we have to do more investigating. It's just something we wanted to discuss and get a consensus of the council.
Maybe it would
We'll
be.
start the conversation with public safety
Yes.
and have their input, and then we'll go to engineering. I mean, it's been discussed many, many times, and I think each time there's been a roadblock, no pun intended, has come up to the one-way. I think there's been some concern about response time in that area if they were not allowed to go around. Might add 2 to 3 minutes to an emergency response. But we'll look into it and just present the council with all the data that we have and the pros and cons.
Well,
Yeah,
what about
no.
the other idea of coming down Lambert's and about, what was it, like 200 feet before the intersection? Are we allowed to go onto the Green Acres property?
I don't
and come in?
believe so.
No, because that would have been perfect, because it
And
would
it goes
stop
against
that.
all engineering
That would really,
standards. I mean,
yeah.
one-way streets are no longer used by engineering. There has to be a certain distance between roads, so that road would have to, I know what you're saying. don't
They
have
should
a-
never align those roads years ago. That was the
But
worst
believe it or
thing
not,
they
the
ever
engineers
did.
went out of the way to align that road.
I knew when it was happening, it was horrible, because before you used to be able to see down the hill.
Mm-hmm.
You never had the amount of accidents you have now.
And you can see the old right-of-way is still there.
It's horrible.
Debbie, where are the accidents? On 34 or on,
No.
Lambertson, Amboy, and Disbro.
it's on all of them?
Well, it's the same
No,
road.
It's right there, okay.
Same road.
Yeah. Yeah, we just, I think too, they don't realize, like, they don't think the traffic is there. If you're at that area, like when the buses are coming and the roads, you see the amount of cut-through. People use that all day long. They go that way to come across. And they speed. It's just incredible.
If it
I
was
mean,
residents only, I think it would solve the problem, like Mrs. Sower said. The people come speeding from 34, cutting through to get to other parts of town. It's not the residents that live right around there that are doing it.
No.
Where do they want to put the light?
I want to put a light at Amboy and 34.
Yeah.
They're going to put one in 2 years, but it's not going to be perfect. They're not realigning Morristown and Amboy like we want it.
Yeah,
We're hoping that if we get this light, then the DOT might realize, hey, we need to fix it. We want to start with something. We've got to take what they offered us, and hopefully we can fix it. But I was just looking for a little solution just to get us to that.
Does
level.
Morristown Road play a part in this too? They got to be
Yes.
playing coming out of there too, right?
Yes, but we're hoping that just a little temporary solution until we get the light up there.
That area was never meant for that amount of traffic. It just wasn't. Those roads, Partridge Road, Lambertston Road, Amboy, they weren't built for that kind of crazy traffic that's there now, 30 years ago, there was nothing there. So we have to just, hopefully we want to do something that's going to make it better. All right, thank you. Then you will be looking into it, and, okay, thank you very much. Next, we will be having an executive session. 1 minute.
Yep. Resolution to recess, go into executive session for purposes of discussing litigation, NL litigation, Raritan-based slag matter. We'll be reconvening if we're taking action after.
Okay, Mark.
Thank you.
The ask down here for council comments before we go into executive session.
Sure.
Okay, so before we vote on these, I was asked by Mr. Rizzoli for council comments. Mr. Rizzoli? Oh, okay. Anyone have council comments? Yes, Mrs. Oh, yeah, no, we'll, a little break. Well,
We have
we have to,
come back after executive session, take action.
yeah, we have to take action. Yeah. But if you want to do the council comments now before we go into executive session, that's fine. Anyone?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, no one then? Okay, so Mark, let's go into.
Make
I
a
mean-
motion? I make a motion.
On the resolution?
Second.
You can take roll call on
Yes, let's do a roll call on executive session. We had a motion, right?
Second, yep.
And a second. Motion?
I motion.
I second.
Tony second, Mr. Piscetty second. Taking a break. I think we're just gonna.
Like, can we take
close
roll
up,
call? Can we go into
do the
executive
roll-
session?
Go in, that's what I'm saying.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin? Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Piscetty?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Sol?
Yes.
8 yes.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to reconvene the council meeting, moved by Dr. Greenberg, second by Mr. Rosselli.
Rizzoli.
Rizzoli. Oh, my God, it's late.
It's okay, it happens quite often, right, Rizzoli?
Okay.
late.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin? Mr. Murphy?
Yeah.
Mr. Piscitty? Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Sol?
Yes.
9 yes.
Now I need a motion for the Township of Old Bridge Resolution approving Raritan Bay Slag Superfund Site Settlement Agreement.
Move it.
Second.
Okay, moved by Mrs. Walker.
Walker?
Yep.
And second by Mr. Rizzoli.
Okay, result.
Rizzoli.
It's late.
It's late.
I want to go. Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Piscitty?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes, now I would like a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion.
Move it. Second.
Okay, moved by Dr. Greenberg.
And second by Mr.
Yep.
Rizzoli. Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
Dr. Greenberg? Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy? Mr. Piscitty? Mr.
Yes.
Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker? President Soha?
Yes.
9 yes. to
Good
adjourn.
evening.